Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku became Tenko Shimura's childhood friend? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. It's so dark in here. So dark and quiet. This feels oddly creepy yet peaceful. Finally, I can rest. I just want to stay here for a while. Where there is no hunger, no cold, and no dad. You close your eyes for who knows long, drifting in nothingness until a small crack of light wakes you from your slumber. If you can even call it that. You turn your back facing the other way from the light and close your eyes again. Just let me sleep. Another crack in the void appears and shines right in front of you. You grimace once again, too stubborn to wake up. No, I'm too tired to see the light. Please, I just want to stay here. So you turn another way. But one more crack appears. And another, until the lights surround you. So you flee, actually, try to scramble away. Panicking at the thought of what awaits you behind that binding light. I don't want to go back. I don't wanna. You try to scream. But no sound comes from your gaping mouth. Of course, you couldn't run away for long. The void around you breaks like glass under your feet, making you fall directly into the light. You squeeze your eyes shut and try to scream one more time. You sob, not expecting a sound to come out, yet still try. Until you do. You're surprised by the sounds surrounding you. And your own baffles you as well, momentarily pausing your cries. But you still don't open your eyes, afraid of what you might face. What if you see him again? Why can't you just rest in peace already? Haven't you suffered enough? You shut your eyes tightly closed and let your other senses take over instead. You brace yourself for some shouting, or a hand to come at you maybe. Instead, the noises around you are much more different than what you were expecting, soothing even. You're trying to register the sounds coming through and realize there was a voice of a man next to you. It's an unfamiliar voice. Your mind raced. Finding the courage to open your eyes, you look around you curiously. Tears from your earlier sobbing blur your vision. You try to refocus on the figure hovering over you like the shade of a tree. As your eyes regain clear vision of your surroundings, you finally see the man's face better this time. He looks worried and confused, making you worried and confused. You open your mouth, ready to ask who this man was, and a million of other questions in mind, but then your throat croaks out a strange noise. Boaz! It is safe to say you cried yourself to sleep from surprise. Once you realized you were now an infant, you were shocked to the point of sobbing yourself unconscious. Now, as you woke up from that short nap sniffling, you realized the man in front of you was your dad. No, not that dad. A whole different dad. You observed your surroundings with a frown, trying to get as much info as possible. You're not sure of your exact age yet, but since you can see clearly, you must be at least 4 months old from the looks of it. Your father seems to be the only one raising you at the moment, no woman in sight. He looks to be extremely inexperienced in handling kids as he stacks a ton of books on the floor mostly about babies, but one with a bold title peeks out from the bottom of the pile, Quirk Development, the first 36 months. Huh? A strange word. Must be a parenting term or something I don't know about. That's all you got so far about your current situation. Ever since you woke up, the man wouldn't leave your side, very much fussing over you with concern. It was annoying to say the least. Can't a baby have a moment of peace? You'd huff at his now annoying-looking face every time he'd come close up to check on you, which immediately aroused concern for the man as he quickly grabbed a few books, flipping through pages to understand why the kid in front of him just blew air. Way to go, man. He kept trying to speak to you, voicing his thoughts out loud just like the book suggested. Baby, are you okay? Do I need to pat your back? Was that a hiccup just now? He'd mutter as he picks up another book, holding it next to your face, looking at pictures of kids in distress and comparing them to your own to see if you were in any pain. Well, you're not crying anymore. Is this a good thing? Baby, are you hungry? He closes the book, scooting over to you, laying stomach down next to the blankets on the floor and resting his head over his folded arms. He looked at you in some kind of weird way. It was a look you saw other parents giving their own children, but never yours. Maybe your mom once looked at you like this, but your father for sure never gave you that look. Irritated by the unpleasant memory, you turned your small head away from his face, giving him the cold shoulder as he chuckled and poked your cheek. Is that a no, baby? You sure you don't want to eat right now? You wanted to bite his finger off, but with no teeth you'd probably inflict zero pain. Just as you tried to shake your head in annoyance, your stomach grumbled on the spot. You turned around slowly with a pale expression to the man and blabbered in contempt. What are you waiting for, old man? Feed me, I'm dying of hunger here. You tried to lift your curled fists in the air demanding food now. This is the first time you've experienced infant hunger, with consciousness of course, and this felt terrible. You now understand why babies cried when in hunger. This really was stressful with your small empty stomach. The man quickly got up and prepared your bottle before finally feeding you in a cradle hold. Here you go, baby. Maybe this was why you were moody earlier, always so extra when hungry. He chuckled to himself. Not long after that meal you quickly felt your eyelids droop down as you yawn, very drowsy. Who knew being a baby was this tiring? It's been a few days of staying with this stranger. And after a few days of observation you've come to a few more conclusions. It's only you and the man staying in the current house together, and he didn't seem to have a job. Well, maybe not right now. I'm not sure if there's a law about maternity leaves for fathers, but maybe his workplace offered him some time off? Oh, and you've also realized you were in Japan. Although you were definitely not Japanese before dying, you somehow still seem to understand and read Japanese fluently without a language barrier. Okay, maybe your 4-month-old self developed understanding towards the language until now, but what does that have to do with you reading it clearly? That question was left unanswered as you focused on something else. Baby, do you want me to read you a story? Look, it's a princess. The man scooped you up into his lap as he opened a children's picture book. The man was very much talkative, taking the recommendations in those baby books too seriously. He kept speaking on auto, barely taking a moment to pause and catch his breath, his voice a low drone under the chatter of the afternoon news playing softly on the TV behind him. A reporter's voice, bright and clear, cut through, thanks to the swift intervention of the water hose hero duo in Shizuoka. No casualties reported. You barely processed it, too focused on your own silent outrage. Hero duo? Must be some kind of show. Huh, this bunny looks just like you, baby. What is it, baby? Don't like this one? Baby, how about this? That darn nickname or whatever. At first, you tried to ignore it, but now it was really getting under your skin. Baby, baby, baby. On and on again. Hey, are you seriously just gonna address me by that? Don't tell me you still haven't picked a name, damn it. You held your baby fists up as you poured all of your thoughts out, but of course the only noises coming out of your mouth were something like goo goo gee. The dad smiled, amused at your display of anger, and just closed the book with a shake of his head. I'm sorry for calling you a bunny, baby. He laughed, squishing your cheeks, and this made you even angrier. What you should be apologizing for is calling me a baby till now, old man. Oh wait, that's it, you don't give me a name and I'll just call you old man. Ha, how about that, huh? You chuckled evilly and the man stared at you in disbelief. You took advantage of catching him off guard and quickly strike up a hand to curl in the roots of his hair, tugging on a hair patch now. Baby, no, my poor hair. I'm so sorry, baby. This fueled your anger, causing your other hand to also go up and into his hair, holding another patch from the roots of his scalp totally on reflex, by the way. Stop calling me baby. And with that, you were both screeching on the floor, engaging in a fierce one-sided fight. It's been a full week now since waking up from that void. All this time, you've been giving the old man a hard time, throwing tantrums and doing whatever to make him irritated. Just as you were. But he's only ever been concerned about your health, never truly angry at you. You've been rethinking your actions once or twice at this point. Were you being too harsh? He clearly didn't do anything wrong, yet you were venting out your anger at him for no reason. Well, it wasn't exactly for no reason. He was the one that brought you out from the light. It must be because of him. You've been blaming him for a while now for pulling you out of the dark, just when you were finally resting in peace. Making it sound like it was his fault you're awake in this small body and strange place. Why do you have to go through all this baby stuff once again? And while you're very much aware and conscious of it too. More than that, you were deeply annoyed at how well he treated you, making the past memories even more bitter. No. Why are you lying to yourself? It was actually the fear of getting used to this warm and fuzzy feeling in your chest. Couldn't he just get angry at you already so you can stop clinging to the hope of having a loving parent so much? Why won't he just yell at you or something? And why did it make your chest squeeze when he looked at you like this? Yes, that look again he's giving you. Even when you're being so messy with your food and leaving stains everywhere. Shouldn't he be frowning? What's with that stupid smile? You hated it. Hated how you've never been looked at like that before. Your father, why couldn't he? You're already thinking back to unpleasant memories once more. You've only been calling the other figure in your head father, unable to call the man in front of you the same. You had one father and that was him. Mama. Please, help me. You'd cry to your mom in pain as you clutch her apron, begging at her knees. Stand up. The cane in his hand smacked against his palm in a warning. The noise made you flinch, thwack, thwack. And you looked up hesitating. I said get up, you fool. He muttered a few other names before you finally stood up and clutched at your skirt, lifting it slightly over the knee for him to whip at your calves. That man and this man were nothing alike. Oh, well, except the fact they both don't call you by your name. But that's besides the point. You felt like you didn't deserve such a man to be your father. Did the ones above take pity on me for having a hard time in my past life? It's not like there aren't kids who suffered much worse, so shouldn't they be the ones in your place right now? How could you ever feel depressed for such small inconveniences? How dare you, rang the familiar voice in your ears. Pausing the messy eating for a second, a single tear fell on the back of your chubby hand. And then another tear, until it registered to you that you were crying. You silently sobbed with a few hicks and sniffs. You held your breath, trying really hard to stop tears from falling any further. You just watched as the small tray filled with food stains also collected tears. You were so sad. Your heart twisting in pain at the memories of neglect, at the jealousy you felt from other people's parents, and at the thought you might have robbed an innocent soul from this loving parent who was now standing on your side. He looked on the verge of tears as well, watching you sob so heartbroken. He wishes to know what's going on in that small brain of yours, wishes to get rid of anything that made you teary. He holds you up in his arms, cradling you to his chest as he tries to console you. Shoo, it's okay, baby. I'm sorry your dad here doesn't know how to make broth, don't cry. He whispers, and you felt your tears roll down harder. For all the blame you heaped upon this man in front of you, he was blaming himself twice as much. For he thought it was all his fault. Convinced even. No, you old man. That broth wasn't bad, it was actually really good. So good I wish I didn't make a mess out of it. You meant what you said, it truly was a shame you wasted such a good meal like a play. You wish you could communicate your thoughts to him more clearly. It's the first time you ate something specifically made for you, not leftovers or pre-ordered food. You selfishly hoped he'd make more of it in the future. Would it be too much to ask for a warm meal? You planted your small hands on his shirt and then held your face further into his chest. You were still a mess with food remains, and you know you messed up his white shirt, yet he didn't say anything. He only patted your back softly in assurance for whatever hardship this small infant could be fighting. Then he held you up in the air up above his head, as he smiled gently, that look planted on his face. You're very loved, baby. Very loved. I know you will always be my beloved child. No matter what. Which is what I'll call you from now on. But now you understand what that look was about. It was a look of affection and adoration. Your sob faltered. You hiccuped slightly and he continued with a thumb stroking away your tears, a soft grin complementing his features. That's right, Aiko. Aiko. The man lifted you up into the air as he spun you around in delight. The same couldn't be said about you though, fearing for your life he might get dizzy and drop you or something. It's been over 2 months together and you still struggle getting along with this stranger that's spinning you around like a maniac. Let me down, old man. You screeched in fear and he mistook that for an excited shriek, grinning further as you both spun around more. Say it again, baby. You can do it, come on, say dada. You squeaked, getting dizzy, and he finally stopped spinning with sparkling eyes waiting for you to utter those words again. It was a slip of tongue, old man. I was testing my verbal skills. He didn't get a thing you were blabbering about and kept looking at you with those dang expectant eyes. Fine, you'll amuse him for a bit, you guess. Da-da-da. You struggled but finally get the words out, causing the man to go on another rampage of spinning. That's right, Aiko. I'm Dada me. He laughed like he got the best present for Christmas, and to him, maybe he did. Because that's how you spent the day of Christmas together. After more chuckles together, you both finally settled down next to the furnace and close to the window that's slightly condensed from the cold. You sit in his lap and look out the window with fascination at how pretty the snow looks in this part of Japan. It painted the nearby buildings white, including the large, stylized mural on the apartment complex across the street, a sleek, modern design of a man with what looked like engine exhausts coming from his calves. Weird advertisement, you thought, before pressing your face against the glass with a smile. And the stranger? He was content with just seeing you smile in his arms, happy as long as you were too. And this time, not by accident and not because anyone asked you to, you finally called the man who held you in his arms for who he truly was. Dada. He was your father. It's been more than a year since you've accepted that the man in front of you was your father. Happy birthday, dear Aiko. Happy birthday to you. He clapped hooray and you quickly got up to blow over the candle shaped in a number. That's right, you're turning 2 years old today. And it was the middle of May, the weather was right in the middle between not too hot and not too cold. Lots of things were different than your past life. Your birthday, your name, and your appearance. You had green eyes and short, curly pink hair that didn't go past your ears. It was super short, but maybe that's for the best, since you know it would be such an inconvenience for your father to learn how to do different hairstyles. Single dad struggles. Overall, you had a striking resemblance to your father. No one can deny that. As you studied him for a few moments with a frown, he tilted his head and smiled, pausing his claps to nudge you and break you out of your thoughts. Go on, make a wish. And so you did, closing your eyes and clasping your hands tightly in a prayer. Done. You grinned and he ruffled your hair with his hands. What did you wish for? He asked, sitting on the floor with you, cross-legged and resting his chin on his hand. You know I can't say, Dada. You scolded him and in return he scooped up a bit of whipped cream on his finger, then wiped it on your nose with a boop. You gasped dramatically, then recited his words perfectly, the same ones he tore your eardrums with. Dada, did you just play with your food? You can't do that. Food is for eating, not playing. TSK, you shook your finger around trying to copy his mannerisms. He rolled his eyes at the dramatic baby before waving his hands up in the air like a white flag of defeat. Oh, party pooper. It's just a bit of cream, monkey. You grumbled, annoyed at how well your dad is of having the last word of almost every conversation. Oh well, you'll let it slide today. The cake's cream is pretty tasty. You held a finger to your mouth, liking in delight at the tasty strawberry batter your father worked hard on making today. It was homemade, and although not as fancy looking as those made in a patisserie, it was 100 times tastier. You grinned at him as he pulled out a baby wipe and wiped the cream off your nose and fingers. The house is already running low on wet wipes cause of how messy you are. He glanced at the nearly empty pack of wipes with a sigh you knew meant a shopping trip was coming. Anyways, you quickly urge him to cut you a big slice of cake from the middle, where there's the most whipped cream and 2 strawberries. He shakes his head, sighing, yet still complying with your evil tactic to harvest the most sugar in 1 slice. He cuts the slice just as you instructed and placed a plate with a small, silicone fork in your chubby hand for you to dig in. The slice was so big he wasn't even sure you'd be able to finish it. But he didn't have to worry about food going to waste, no, not today. Because you gobbled that slice with ease. Right after placing the plate in front of you, you even liked the plate clean. He looked at you in disbelief and you gave back an innocent smile as you shamelessly continued liking the plate, savoring the cream. Unbelievable. What did you do to my daughter, you chunky monkey? Release the poor plate. He dramatically exclaimed, taking the plate from your hand before you start chomping on it next. You giggled like a child, forgetting your mental age is of that of much older whenever you hung out with this man. Your dad really brought out the childish self inside you. Taking the plates and cleaning up the small party you guys held on the floor, he goes to the kitchen to do the dishes in the sink. And you watched with a smile, leaning and holding your toes with your hands. A very comfortable baby pose. You're really getting the hang of this baby thing here. Not long after, he came back to your side with his hands behind his back. Of course, you knew he was hiding your present behind him since you were watching him the whole time, yet you feigned ignorance. Aiko, it is time. For the moment you have been waiting for. He makes some sound effects like a drum roll. Tada! It's present time. He held up the small box in front of you and you fake a surprised gasp. You squish your cheeks to make your act even more believable. You snatch the box from his hands before he can point out the faults in your amateur acting skills. What is it, Dada? Can I shake the box? Can I? You asked, curious, and he quickly reached out his hands, shaking his head quickly. No. It's very fragile, ahem, which means breakable. Don't shake. You gulp. That was a close call. You almost ruined your gift. And so, you complied and stopped treating the box roughly. Instead, you carefully tugged at the ribbons around the box and teared away the paper wrapping gently. Until the gift was now in sight. You looked up at him deadpanned. Really, Dada? Fragile? You slurred the last word, still having a hard time with the alphabets for a toddler. The gift was a stuffed teddy bear, with a cute bow tie in a pink shade. It's not that you hated the gift, no, you immediately hugged the teddy smiling. But still, it was very silly how he tricked you with his acting, making you stick out your tongue at him while hugging the teddy bear tighter. Oh, sorry monkey. Must have gotten my gifts mixed up. He says with a scoff before pulling out another gift, one you hadn't noticed him hide this time, and placing it in front of you. It was slightly smaller in size and you looked at it confused. 2 gifts? Is it 'cause I turned 2? Hooray, can't wait for my 3rd birthday. You quickly unwrap it and a shiny figurine of All Might in a sealed box appears in your hands. You gasp, jumping wildly before slinging your hands around your father's neck, muttering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Your thanks mispronounced. Needless to say, just like any other kid, you were also fascinated by All Might. He hugs you back and once again says, "Happy birthday, Aiko." Of course, it took you some time to find out that you were in a very familiar world, My Hero Academia. It was a bit before your birthday that you realized these news and shows aired on TV weren't fiction anymore. It left your jaw slacking open when you saw an extremely high-quality footage of All Might. No, the footage isn't high quality, it's raw, shaky, from a news helicopter. It's undeniably real. The famous line, "I am here," booms from the speakers, and the camera shakes from the force of his landing. And that hits you with realization all over again. Those people you saw on TV with weird characteristics were real? You thought your dad was making you watch cartoons. You wouldn't have thought it was anything out of the ordinary to see such characters in a kid's show or something. You gasped out loud, making your dad run to the living room in a jump scare. You were already at his knees, jumping before he can approach you, and you quickly asked to confirm, "Is All Might real?" He looks at you in surprise and laughs heartily, which you had no time for, sir. You kicked his shin annoyed and he finally stopped to wipe away his tears. "Of course he is, monkey. Did you think he was fake?" And you grumbled. You said not to believe everything on TV. You lifted a finger his way, frowning. "Okay, fair point." He muttered under his breath and lifted you up into his arms. "Do you like All Might?" he asks, and your eyes wide look at him in shock. Like, was that seriously a question? "Yes." You reply with hands in the air. "By how much?" Your dad laughs, in which you return with your arms extended to show him how much. "And how much do you like me?" "Yes, Beth." Knowing he's messing with you, you hold your hands at a smaller distance than before and raise an eyebrow. "This much?" He gasps, spinning you around in punishment, knowing you don't like it much. You can't like him more than your father. And you yelp, begging for mercy. Okay. I like you the most, Dada." In which he finally stops spinning you with a smile and a boop to your nose. "Forgiven." Not before turning to the TV, his eyes darkening at the standing figure All Might in a reportage. He looked at him with furrowed brows. "Real, indeed," he says cryptically, but you were too busy seeing starts and wobbling to notice. so dizzy. A few days after the birthday party, your mind started really processing things more clearly. You've been blinded by the love your new parent has been giving you for the past year and a half, acting like an actual toddler, to notice the weird stuff about your stay. Blinded by how good it felt to be loved. Your dad being there every second, his laugh, his patience that felt like a warm blanket. It had put your grown-up brain to sleep. You were so busy fighting old memories and soaking up his kindness that you stopped looking at anything else. You just took your tiny world for granted. Now, with this new truth about heroes buzzing in your head, you started seeing your life for what it was. You were alone. You were two, and you'd never played with another kid. Never been to a playground. Your whole world was this apartment. Your dad didn't leave for work. He was just always here. Sure, sometimes he'd type on his computer for a few hours, calling it his side thing. But you never heard him talk to a boss. No one ever called. The food, the toys, the all-might figure, it all seemed to be purchased online. He kept you inside. He didn't like going out. The few times you did were quick, nervous trips to the store. The handful of times had been swift, tightly choreographed missions. The pharmacy, the grocery store for specific ingredients, and the homeward shop for supplies whenever we had a plumbing issue or whatever else could be needed. He'd never let you out of his eyesight, always keeping you close by as he picked out the things he needed to purchase. You'd thought he was just being a worried dad. Now you weren't so sure. A silly idea popped up, maybe he's a germaphobe? You immediately shot it down, the memory vivid and incongruous. Just last week, you'd sneezed a spectacular, sticky mess all over. He hadn't flinched. He just smiled that soft smile, wiped your nose gently with his thumb, and said, "Bless you, monkey," before reaching for a wet wipe. Bleg, even I was taken aback by the scene. No, it wasn't a fear of contamination. It was something else. Something deliberate. Maybe you're overthinking it. Maybe it's just an overprotective single dad thingy, but that doesn't explain the lack of picture frames, nor the fact he was like a ghost. He never talked about family and no friends ever came over. You felt a bit of pity towards your father at that lonely thought. Was he cast out by his family and friends for having a child with no mom? It didn't really make you lonely essentially. He was more than enough company for you, so you didn't even bother thinking about why no one visits or why you had no mother. Didn't ask either. Felt like a heavy topic for him. In your eyes, your dad looked like a pushover. He had light pink hair, fair skin, and dark blue eyes. His features made him seem very innocent, exactly the appearance you'd expect of a shy character that would be the pushover in multiple TV episodes. You huffed, irritated at who would dare isolate this man you call Dada. Oh, and there's something else you've learned about him. His full name was Senshi Hino, making you automatically Aiko Hino. You thought it might unlock an important piece, but nope. Once you had both his name and appearance clear in your mind, you tried very hard to remember if there was a character like him mentioned in the anime or manga. Nothing. You're now definitely sure you and your father were extras. It doesn't really matter, extra or not, your love for your father was still the same. The love he offered you was real. You were certain of that now, in your bones. Your dad walked back into the living room, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. "For my favorite hero fan," he said, placing the small, sippy cup version in front of you. You looked from the steaming cup, to his open, affectionate face, to the window that showed a sliver of a world full of heroes and quirks and dangers you were only beginning to comprehend. The cozy apartment suddenly felt very, very small. "Thank you, Dada," you said, the words automatic. But your mind was whirring, awake and clear and painfully observant for the first time in 2 years. You were loved. You were safe. But you were starting to suspect, very deliberately hidden. Ever since he held you in his arms, he knew you were his everything. Which is kind of funny because he never really liked kids to begin with. Was this the maternal bonding mothers feel after childbirth? They say that fathers take a while to feel that bond over time. Yet he was instantly attached once he felt your cheek nuzzle against his palm. An invisible thread pulling him to the child, giving him a sudden, overwhelming sense of purpose. He knew he'd do anything for the tiny life in his arms. And he will. Starting with how to raise you with care. He knew nothing about kids, and he didn't bother with them either. He tried to remember his own upbringings as he grew up, thinking about using that as reference, but shook the idea off immediately. He was not a normal kid. And he was definitely against the idea raising you the same way he has been raised. And so, his journey of parenthood started with stacks of books instead. He read and gathered information from these parenting books, starting from zero. How to hold you properly, which foods you were and weren't allowed to eat, what each cry means. Basically toddler things. He thought he was doing well in the first week he held you. You were 4 months old and was placed in his care since then. He did everything the books told him to do. And he felt accomplishment seeing your positive response. Nothing hinted at him doing anything incorrectly. But starting the second week, everything changed. You were fussy, crying nonstop, and for some reason mad. He didn't know what to do with you. Suddenly, all the books he was praising started feeling like they were scams. He searched and searched for a clue to what was wrong, what bothered you so much, or if you were in pain. Even after a few doctor visits, they still didn't have an answer for him. Said that she was a perfectly healthy baby. He felt hopeless. He tried and took every advice to heart, even praying sometimes to whoever watched above him to just help his baby calm down. And with some time, it finally worked. Maybe it was his prayer, maybe the extra advice from his neighbors, you finally stopped the sobs. He felt immense relief. But not for long. He felt his chest clench at the heartbroken expressions you were making. It was unbelievable to him that an infant, no older than 5 months, had a twisted expression of one that endured pain for much longer. It was ridiculous when he thought about it again. How could a 5-month-old ever make a face way past her age? It worried him, whatever it was that you were remembering or dealing with. He was worried it was something you remembered from before he had taken you into his care. Did someone mistreat you when he wasn't there? Did they lay hands on you? He wished you could just speak and tell him all your worries and problems so he can solve them for you. In the meantime, he swore to himself he'll make you forget all the bad moments and replace them with good memories only, such that you will no longer dwell on the past if you ever remembered again. By the time it was nearing the end of the year, his efforts seemed to finally pay off. His mind was so busy trying to appease to his daughter that it completely went over his head she still didn't have a name. He didn't have to think long about what to name her though. It came to him on the spot, as natural as breathing that her name couldn't be anything but Aiko. She was loved and he wanted her to feel that way every time she heard her name being called. She deserved it. And from then on, the moment he held her above his head and whispered her name, he felt their connection finally click. It was like she understood him, noticed his hard work and efforts, and graced him with the best gift ever on their first Christmas together. Dada. His heart was filled with warmth as he wrapped her in his arms as they both felt mutual joy in each other's company. My daughter is my entire world. But lately she's been asking a lot of questions. Dada, what's your name? Da, what's your job? How old are you? It's fine for a kid her age to be curious, the books said. Are we broke? But this one had him spit his coffee. Is it really normal for kids to be asking such specific questions? The older she gets, the more I doubt these books' credibility. Cough cough. We're not broke, Aiko. But it's not something you should be concerned about either. He sat down his mug and pulled you up on the couch next to him. What about friends? Friends. Do you have any, Dada? This kid really has a weird pattern with her questions. Ahem, well, I do have a few acquaintances. So you don't have any friends? You sigh and bring a small hand to rub his forearm with pity. I can't believe I'm getting comforted by a toddler. Aha. You really starting to paint me in a bad light here, monkey? Can we go to the store, please? And now you're changing the subject right after dropping a bomb on him? You could have just said that from the start, Aiko. Didn't have to embarrass me. He laughs awkwardly as he picks you up from the couch and into his arms. You have been asking about anything and everything in hopes of figuring out your dad's identity. He seemed pretty ordinary, and you had no doubts about him at all. Until a few days ago you saw something about your dad that seemed suspicious. Since summer has begun, the weather has been getting warmer and warmer. It didn't bother your toddler body much, you found the temperature just perfect. But your dad wasn't as unaffected as you were. Senshi didn't want to turn on the conditioner so you wouldn't have the possibility of catching a cold. Instead, he'd walk around the house shirtless. That's around the time you'd been studying and observing him more carefully. Why haven't I noticed till now how seriously muscular Dad was? He didn't seem to be the type to hit the gym, and you've rarely seen him exercise in the 2 years together, so how is he keeping up his build? No, how did he get that build in the first place? Whatever, you brushed it off since it should be normal for a man to care about his health and body at this time of age, where danger lurks around the corners and quirks are everywhere. But what caught your attention were the scars he had on his back. You stood up abruptly, running to his side, and worriedly asked, "Dada, what's this? Are you hurt?" You point at the closest scar to his back torso, and it took him a few seconds to understand what you meant. "Ah. Well, these are old boo-boos from when I was young. It doesn't hurt anymore, it's fine." He smiled, gently patting your head, trying to ease your worries. You grumble, knowing that's not the full story. Could it have been abuse? Is that why he's not in contact with his family anymore? Or was it outside bullying? Lots of questions roamed in your mind, but you knew he wouldn't be answering any of them even if you asked. You were just a kid in his eyes, of course he wouldn't burden you with bad memories. In the end, all you can do is patiently be by his side, just as he has been on yours. You used the excuse of going to the supermarket to buy more baby wipes as a way for you to go out of the stuffy apartment. Senshi was about to pick you up as you both headed to the nearest store, but you insisted to walk on your own this time. But not without grumbling to himself, something about how you used to cling to him just a few days ago. Kids grow up too quickly. There's nothing wrong with the apartment you're in right now. It's a simple 2+1 with the living room and kitchen made up one big room, and the rest is a 2 standard bedroom. It's more than enough for the both of you, but sure does get boring staying inside all the time. Now as you walk, you're more observant of the people around you. You hadn't really paid attention before, too wrapped up in your own small world, but even then, how did you miss the animal-looking people that were walking by? Now, you saw it clearly, the man with the bulldog's jaw chatting on a phone, the woman with feathers instead of hair. They weren't in costumes. This was just the reality of this world, no longer hidden by a screen, settled over you with a strange, heavy clarity. First time you saw a talking dog man on the TV, you didn't take it seriously at all. In fact, your first thought was, what's this, a marketing ploy for Zootopia 2? As you observe these people, which you recently learned are very much real, with eyes wide in awe, you don't realize you're acting exactly like a toddler when they see someone with a disability or in a wheelchair. Very rude. Just as you look at a person with a gorilla facial structure, your dad scoops you to his side and whisperingly yells, "Monkey, you're staring too rudely." "Wait, no, not you, sir. I was talking to my daughter Dash." The gorilla woman clicks her tongue, frowning, and says something along the lines of, "Must have gotten that from her dad." Your dad spluttering, trying to apologize and explain the situation, but the woman just leaves him behind without hearing the rest of his words. You both look straight ahead, not looking at each other as you continue the walk. But you know both of you have the same blank face, trying to hide the embarrassment of earlier situation. Let's not use that nickname when we're outside anymore. Couldn't agree less. As you reach the store, your steps falter in a slow pace, slower than earlier, as you try to buy yourself some time and savor the outside wind. "Come on, Aiko, either keep close by or hold my hand if you're gonna be this slow." You mumble an okay, and walk closer to him. The supermarket near your neighborhood is decently big and super quiet. In other words, very peaceful. Your dad has a small basket in hand as he strolls through the market with you next to him. He's browsing the shelves slowly, trying to remember what we don't and do need to stock on. He was ready to go left but quickly changed his steps last second to right, very obviously trying to avoid a particular aisle. Because of the multiple visits to this store, you've basically memorized the location of the snacks aisle now. And so you ran over that way, leaving your dad chasing you behind. "Gummy bears." You point and look up at him for permission to buy the small pack. Sigh, guess there's no evading this aisle in a lifetime. Your walk back to the apartment goes slowly, as you try to drag it on longer. Senshi tells you to hurry up so he can get started on making lunch faster, but you'd still stubbornly keep up the slow pace, almost dragging your feet against the pavement in the process. He notices that your agreement is only verbal and turns around to face you with hands on his hips, urging you again to walk faster. You just whine saying your legs are tired and sore. Well, then I'll just carry you the way back home, he suggests, and you whine even more saying you don't wanna. Instead, you point at a close bench and ask him to rest there for a bit. He rolls his eyes knowing he can't win against you and complies with your request. Coincidentally, the bench you were both now resting on was facing directly in front of a playground. You silently watched, your gaze different than how you observed the neighbors earlier today. Senshi noticed your quietness and he turned to see what was wrong. When he followed where your gaze fell on, he felt a slight twinge in his chest. You looked at the small park that had a few kids with a small glint in your eyes. Senshi felt really bad suddenly for making you have such a look. Maybe I have been too strict and paranoid. He scolds himself before coughing into his fist to grab your attention. You turned to face him with a raised eyebrow, and he grinned after removing his fist to his side. Wanna go to the park? You turn your head so fast, staring at him now to see if he's joking or not. You realize he isn't and jump off the bench bouncing. Yes, yes, yes. He sighs seeing your enthusiasm, then with his hands on your shoulder, he turns you around facing the direction of the small playground. What are you waiting for? Go on then, monkey. You don't even realize the nickname that slipped out his tongue, only focused on the playground. And as he lifts his hands off your shoulder, you sprint off in the speed of light. You've never had the opportunity to enjoy your childhood before, but it's different now. This time, you swore you'll make the best out of it. Whoa! You yelp on the swing as it goes higher and higher with the swinging of your feet. Your dad now sits on a bench closer to the playground to keep an eye on things. You wanted to attempt that jump kids do when they get high enough but decided against it once you looked down at the ground from above. Instead, you just busy yourself with trying every single thing in the park. Climbing up the ladder to try the largest slide, you suddenly feel anxious. It feels much bigger than you thought compared to your small body. So you look around for a bit from above trying to calm yourself. Instead, you notice a group of kids from afar, surrounding another kid that's crouched against a tree. Wait, he looks familiar. Gasp, is that Deku? You squint your eyes and you swore that's him. Oh wow, what a coincidence you run across the main character already. But that's not the time to gawk about it, they're literally bullying the poor kid. Your anxiety evaporates, instead replaced with a fuel of anger, and you quickly hurry down the slide. You stumble as you reach the ground, but hurriedly you push up now, almost running on all fours, eyes already locked on the group under the distant tree. Hey! Your voice carries throughout the park as you run at them like a bull before you pull yourself up on both your feet and sprint faster. The kids look taken aback, stepping a bit backwards, afraid you'd run into them. You barely hit your brakes, stopping right in front of their bodies with your chest held high. What do you think you're doing, you big? You pause, trying to remind yourself you're still a child and should use appropriate language for now. Meanies ganging up on one person? Leave him alone or else I'll call my dad on you three. You point to where your dad is sitting and he looks angry as he approaches with slow steps your way. The kids watching him walk in their direction quickly sprint off with their tails between their legs. Phew, that was easier than I thought. Finally, with the kids gone, you look down at the small boy. Are you okay? He finally looks up at you and you pause. That's not Deku. He has black hair and eyes the color of smoke. And he looked like a hurt bunny, really startled by your sudden appearance. Whoops, guess you mistook him for Deku cause of the hair, and it wasn't very clear from afar what his hair color was exactly under the tree shade. Whatever, you didn't shoo off the bullies just cause you thought he's the main character. That was just extra information, it doesn't really matter. And so you hold out your hand for him to get him up. I'm Aiko Senshi, what's your name? You ask with a small smile, trying to ease the tension. He slowly holds out his hand towards you and spoke, Tenko Shimura. Ah, that sounds familiar. Tenko Shimura? You flinch, eyes widening as you slip your hand back towards your chest, hugging it with a startle. Once the name registers in your ears, you realize why the boy looked familiar. That's Tamura Shigaraki as a kid. Your heart was beating fast with the future image of him in your mind. You had taken your hand back in a fright of his quirk, decay. But wait, it shouldn't have manifested yet. He's still a kid and seems to be the same age as you. Finally, you calm yourself down, And see, his expression looks even more hurt now. He's on the verge of tears from how you evaded his outstretched hand earlier. You quickly splutter, trying to defuse the situation before he starts crying on you. Oh. Sorry, I just remembered my hands are dirty from playing with the sand. Hold on, let me clean them real quick. You sweat your hands in the air, trying to make a show of fake sand leaving your already clean hands. You then offer him your hand again, although trembling, for him to take. He does, and you breathe a sigh of relief as you pull him up to his feet. He flies up, not expecting you to pull him that strongly, and you both bump shoulders as he goes into your embrace with an oof. You laugh, seeing the boy, startled, back away. Nice to meet you, Tenko. You almost hugged me there, you point out, and he doesn't laugh at your comment, still frowning with a bit of distrust. Nice to meet you too. Well, at least he acknowledged your greetings. You're both quiet for a bit, and before you can say another word, Senshi is on your side. Aiko, what was that earlier? Why did you run like that? You could have gotten hurt. He frowns with his hands crossed as he taps his shoes, waiting for an answer. Sorry, I just saw a group of kids annoying Tenko and couldn't stand still. You point to Tenko, who is visibly shaken by the strange man hovering over him. Your dad looks between the two of you before leaning down and ruffling your hair. I see then, that was very nice of you, but next time be careful so you don't hurt yourself. He then looked over to Tenko, his smile gentle but his eyes doing a quick, assessing sweep, taking in the boy's ragged clothes, the dirt on his knees, the wary slump of his shoulders. Hello, Tenko. You look like a smart boy. I'm gonna trust you'll both be careful in the park, right, Aiko? His voice was warm, but the message was clear. He was watching. You grab the boy's hand and voice out to your father. Yes, Dad. Now let's go. Wanna play there, Tenko? You point at a seesaw, and the boy hesitates as you drag him away, but then smiles and nods his head. Great, we will play there. You giggle, dragging Tenko faster through the park. Giggles bubble out of you both as you start trying different slides, the star mirror panel and the swings. Meanwhile, Senshi is watching you, but now with a smile, happy to see you have fun. Okay, push with your feet. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. You leaned back, pushing off the ground with a soft grunt, sending Tenko up into the air with a surprised gasp. For a moment, you were eye level with the rusted bar between you. His small hands gripped the metal, white-knuckled. You gave another push, gentler this time, setting a slow, steady rhythm. Up and down. Up and down. It was easier to talk this way, you decided. You didn't have to look right at him all the time. The silence stretched, filled only by the soft creak-creak of the seesaw and the distant shouts from the other end of the park. So, you started, your voice overly bright. Do you like heroes, Tenko? He was quiet as he drifted down, and you rose up. You watched the top of his head, the dark, messy hair. Did I guess? He said finally, as he began to rise again. Strong. It was a non-answer. You pressed, floating back down. Who's your favorite? He was chewing his lip. You could see it from your high point. All Might, he muttered, almost too quiet to hear over the playground noise. Of course. It was the default answer for any kid in Japan, but hearing it from him sent a strange shiver down your spine. The symbol of peace, and the boy who would one day seek to break all symbols. You pushed off again, your mind racing. He's cool, you agreed, trying to sound normal. My dad got me an All Might figure for my birthday. Do you have any? You descended, and saw him shake his head, looking down at his shoes as he went up. No. Oh. The word felt heavy. You scrambled for a new topic, something to keep him talking. What about your quirk? Do you have one yet? The seesaw jerked to a sudden, lurching halt as Tenko froze midair, his feet dangling. His whole body went rigid. Your heart gave a painful thud against your ribs. Wrong question. Stupid question. I don't know, he whispered. The fear in his voice was palpable, a thin, fragile thing. My dad, he says it's too soon to tell. That it has to be perfect. The way he said perfect sounded like a prison sentence. You remembered the story, the pressure, the rejection, the decay that manifested in a moment of terrified stress. You're not a saint, but this kid could cause great harm in the future. Harm that might even endanger you and your father. You had to give it a try and fix this, now. Oh, you said again, softly, trying to pour all your fake 2-year-old calm into the sound. You let your feet drag on the ground, lowering him gently until the seesaw was balanced. My dad says quirks are like fingerprints. Or the color of your eyes. They just are. They're not good or bad, they're just yours. And nobody's is perfect, 'cause perfect is boring. You risked a glance at him. He was staring at you, his smoky eyes wide with a confusion that looked painfully close to hope. You said that? Yep. You nodded emphatically, your curls bouncing. He says what matters is what you do with it. Like if your quirk was to make really big bubbles, you could be a hero who puts out fires with soap. Or, if it was to be super-duper stretchy, you could be a hero who gets cats out of trees without even needing a ladder. You were babbling, creating the most absurd, non-threatening quirk images you could. So it doesn't matter what it is. When it comes, it'll be yours. And that's the cool part. He was still staring. You'd never seen someone listen so intently. You talk to your dad about quirks? I talked to my dad about everything, you said, and it was mostly true. Even if that didn't answer him. It's only quirks you haven't talked about with him. He listens. Mostly. Sometimes he's too busy worrying about me catching a cold. You stuck out your tongue playfully, and you saw the tiniest twitch at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile, but the ghost of one. The seesaw creaked as he shifted his weight. Your dad is nice. He's okay, you said, grinning. Sometimes he's a big worrywart. And he calls me monkey. You wrinkled your nose. This time, the ghost became a real, fragile smile. It transformed his whole face. Monkey? Yeah, 'cause I climb on everything. And apparently I make faces like one. You contorted your features into what you hoped was a chimpanzee impression, puffing out your cheeks and widening your nostrils. A sound escaped Tenko, a choked, startled little laugh. It was the best sound you'd heard all day. The tight fear in your chest loosened a fraction. See, you said, letting your face go back to normal. Silly. What does your dad call you? The smile vanished as if it had never been. He looked back down at his shoes. Tenko, he said, but the name sounded flat, empty. Boy. Sometimes, other things. The ache in your chest returned, sharper. You knew those other things. Worthless. Useless. Failure. You took a deep breath, pushing off the ground again, setting the seesaw back into its gentle, rocking motion. The rhythm was safer. Well, I think Tenko is a great name, you declared firmly, rising into the air. It's strong. And I'm Aiko. That means, love child. Which is also silly, 'cause I'm definitely not a baby anymore. You puffed out your chest with 2-year-old dignity. He was looking at you again as you swapped positions. Aiko, he repeated, testing it. He said it carefully, like it was a piece of glass. And my dad is Senshi. It means warrior, which is way cooler than monkey. You dropped your voice to a conspiratorial whisper as you descended. Don't tell him I said that. He shook his head, a quick, serious motion. I won't. Another comfortable silence settled, but this one was warmer. The creak of the seesaw was a calming metronome. You watched your dad from your high point. He was pretending to read something on his phone, but you could see his eyes flick up to you every few seconds, then scan the park's perimeter. Always on. Aiko. Tenko's voice was small. Yeah. Do you come to the park a lot? You came back down. Not really. My dad gets worried about stuff. But I'm gonna ask to come more now. You looked at him directly as you said it, willing him to understand the subtext. Because you're here. He understood. You saw it in the way his shoulders tensed, then slowly relaxed. He didn't say thank you. He just gave another one of those small, shaky nods. Will you be here? You asked, pushing off again. He watched the ground pass beneath his feet. Maybe. If I can. It wasn't a promise, but it was enough. For now, it was enough. You were in the air, the world briefly small and simple below you, holding a conversation with a boy who held the future in his small, itching hands. And for the first time, the The fear was edged with something else, a fierce, protective determination. "Good," you said as you began your descent back to him. The golden light of late afternoon stretched their shadows long across the sandbox. The shouts from the playground had softened into tired murmurs, and the air carried the first hint of evening coolness. You were showing Tenko how to make a hopelessly lopsided sandcastle using one of the playground's plastic cups. After a while of playing, you hear a voice call out your name. It's Senshi, so you turn your head to see him waving for you to come. You realize it's time to go home now as the sky has darkened a bit with a cast of clouds over the setting sun. You turn back to Tenko, who's standing close by with quivering lips like he knows you're leaving now. "Aiko, time to go, monkey." Your dad's voice was gentle but firm, the kind that didn't expect an argument. You looked up. Senshi was standing by the bench, your tiny backpack slung over his shoulder. He gave you a small, apologetic smile, but Senshi's eyes were already doing that thing flicking towards the park entrance, calculating the walk home before the streetlights came on. A lump formed in your throat. You looked back at Tenko. He had frozen, his dirty hands hovering over the crumbling sand tower. The fragile ease that had built over the last hour seemed to crack and fall apart as quickly as the sand. "I gotta go now, Tenko. I had so much fun playing with you," you say, holding both his hands in yours, and finish your farewells. He didn't say anything. He just stared at the ruined castle, his shoulders hunched. You stood up, feeling a desperate need to say something, to cement this afternoon into a promise. "That was fun, right? The seesaw was the best." He nodded, a single, jerky motion. Still looking down. You took a step toward your dad, then felt a small, hesitant tug on your arm. "When you come by again, can we play together again?" he asks with droopy eyes that make your heart clench. You turn to look at him again, and settle a hand on his shoulder, patting him. You put on your biggest, sunniest smile, the one you used when trying to convince your dad to buy extra gummy bears. "Of course, silly. But only if you promise to be the one who pushes the seesaw first next time. My legs got super tired today, and I think it's your turn to do all the hard work." For a second, he just blinked, processing. The heavy fear in his eyes broke, shattered by pure, bewildered confusion. Then a real, startled laugh hiccuped out of him. It was a rusty, unused sound, but it was genuine. "I pushed sometimes," he mumbled, a faint hint of a protest in his tone. "Nah, I did all the big pushes. You just went along for the ride," you teased, hands on your hips. "So it's a deal? You push first." He looked at you, at your mock-stern expression, and the last of the tension seeped from his shoulders. He gave you that small, serious nod. "It's a deal." "Aiko, let's go," Senshi called, a little more urgency in his voice now. "Coming." You gave Tenko a final, bright grin. "See you later, Tenko." You turned and ran towards your dad, the sand kicking up behind your little shoes. When you grabbed Senshi's waiting hand, you glanced back over your shoulder. Tenko was still sitting by the sad sandcastle, but he wasn't looking at it anymore. He was watching you go. And this time, he wasn't on the verge of tears. He just looked thoughtful. One of his hands came up, and he gave you a single, slow, awkward wave. You waved back wildly with your whole arm, beaming, until your dad gently turned you around to walk home. As you left the park gates, the smile slowly faded from your face. You held your dad's hand tighter. "Is he a nice boy?" Senshi asks after a moment, his voice carefully neutral. "He is," you said, your own voice quiet now. "He needs a friend, Dada." Senshi didn't answer immediately. He just squeezed your hand back, his gaze fixed on the path ahead, already scanning, already protecting. The unspoken "thou" hung in the air between you, heavy with all the things he wouldn't or couldn't say. You had made a promise based on a silly condition about a seesaw. But in your heart, it felt like the most important promise you'd ever made. "I want to be his friend." You beam innocently and look up at your dad to study his expression. He's got that small smile from earlier, but otherwise his expression is extremely passive. You cannot read what's on his mind, and the only reply he gives you is a small hum along with, "We'll see about that." Your father's lap was the most stable place in the world. The solid sound of the hairbrush working its way on detangling your hair, the familiar scent of his plain soap and the faint, ever-present hint of coffee, it was your anchor. You were facing away from him, a small king on a throne of denim, while his large, calloused hands worked with surprising delicacy at the task of taming your impossible hair. "Hold still, monkey," he murmured, his voice a soft rumble against your back. The bristles of the baby brush scratched pleasantly against your scalp, snagging instantly on a curl. "You've got a bird's nest back here. What you been doing, rolling in syrup?" You hummed, a non-committal sound, your mind far from the apartment. It was back in the park, in the grainy shade of the oak tree where you'd found an important piece of the story, a boy who will later on be a villain. Tenko Shimura. The name was a drumbeat in your head. He was small, so small. Not just physically, but in the way he occupied space, as if trying to fold into himself. It was pitiful and made your heart ache in familiarity. You'd placed him at 2, maybe 3 years old. Which meant, if your memory of the canon timeline held any water, you were now older than the main cast of MHA, Izuka Midoriya at least. That was cool, but nothing important really. It surprisingly didn't matter to you if you were older or younger, nor did it matter to you what's going on with the main character right now. Maybe he's not even born yet, but even if he was, you seriously didn't care enough to get tangled with him if you ever cross paths. Because he was the main character. He'd get over every obstacle and challenge in his life and will eventually become the top hero of the country, so should you really be worried about him getting bullied as a child? It might sound cruel to say this, but maybe the bullying was the right choice into making him the top hero in the future. Sometimes, hardship is a requirement. Which is why you've decided to focus on the villain you've met yesterday than on the main character of the story. Those have a bigger potential of ruining your life if you didn't try to interfere. You pictured Tenko's face again. The smoky eyes, wide with a wariness that aged him. He'd been scratching, yes, a nervous, rabbit-like nibbling at his neck and eyes. But his skin, while pale, was clear. No bloody furrows, no scabs around his eyes. Not yet. You remember his conversation from yesterday? You talked to your dad about quirks? His question, so full of bewildered, fragile hope, echoed in the quiet room. The answer, for both of you, was a resounding, silent no. Your dad filled the silence with stories and songs and silly voices, what you'd expect a father to be talking about with their 2-year-old. But he navigated around certain words as if they were live wires. And Tenko's father, you shivered, a small, involuntary thing. Senshi's hands paused. "Cold?" he asked, his voice laced with that instant, ready concern. "No," you said softly. Then, you let the question unspool, casual as a dropped ribbon. "Dada?" "Yeah. What's a quirk?" The brush stopped mid-slide. Not a hesitant stop, but a full-system halt. The comfortable rhythm of your world stuttered. You could feel the stillness seize his entire frame, a statue forming behind you. Then the careful, controlled reboot. The brush resumed its path, slower now. "A quirk?" he asked. His voice was light, but it was the kind of lightness that took effort. "Where'd my little monkey hear that?" Point 1. Source identification. Deflection protocol engaged. Tenko said it, you answered, which was technically true. He'd said he didn't have one yet. You leaned your head back against his stomach, looking up at the ceiling. And on the TV, the man said the lady hero had a strong quirk. You fumbled the word slightly, a toddler's approximation. Ah. The sound was a release of a small amount of tension. The TV and another child were safer sources than something more direct. Well, a quirk is just a special thing some people can do. Like how some people are really good at drawing, or can run super fast. Does it make them look funny? You pressed, your tone idle. Like the mailman with the orange hair that moves like fire? You felt his chest expand in a silent, deep breath. Sometimes, he said, his words measured. Sometimes a quirk changes how a person looks. That's just how they're born. Like how you were born with these crazy curls. He tugged one gently, trying for playfulness. It landed a half-beat late. The brush moved to a new section. The silence stretched, filled with the soft shush of bristles through the short hair. He then grabbed the longest section he could find and tied it with a hair tie. The hair was too short to even call it a pony. Even the hair tie thought the same as it loosened and came undone, letting the curls free again. He sighed and went back to brushing. You waited, letting the quiet do the work for you. Dada? You asked again, tilting your head back further to look at his upside-down chin. Do you have a quirk? This time, the pause was a chasm. The brush froze completely. You can see his jaw tensed. For 2 full heartbeats, there was only the sound of the clock on the wall. You could feel the careful, frantic recalibration happening above you, the weighing of lies, the cost of truth, the assessment of threat level. Then a soft, forced chuckle. The brush began moving again, detangling the knot with meticulous care. Me? Nah, monkey. I'm boring old me. His voice was too casual, a performance of ease. My only quirk is knowing exactly when you're about to ask for a snack, or when you're picking the veggies off your plate. It's a very dad-specific superpower. Point 2, evasion through humor. Subject redirected. You smiled, a small, secret thing he couldn't see. You filed away the reaction, the freeze, the overcorrection in the growing mental dossier labeled Senshi, secrets. But you weren't done. You saved the most important one for last, asking it in the smallest, most innocent voice you could muster. Do I have a quirk? You braced yourself for the brush to stop midway again, but it didn't happen. This time, he didn't abruptly stop the brushing. He continued on with the last few curls with a slightly more firm grip over them. You looked up slightly to see his jaw tense again, but better than earlier. Finally brushing through all of your hair, he set the brush down on the couch beside him. His large hands came to rest on your shoulders, warm and heavy. He leaned down, his face appearing in your peripheral vision, his expression softer than you'd ever seen it, edged with a sadness you didn't fully understand. No, Aiko, he said, and his voice was utterly, devastatingly sincere. You don't. And that's more than okay. He turned you gently in his lap so you were facing him, his hands cradling your cheeks. His blue eyes held yours, intent and serious. Quirks, they're like presents you don't get to open until you're a bigger kid. Around 4 years old. And some kids never get one at all. And that's just fine. He searched your face, as if trying to implant this truth directly into your mind. Having a quirk or not, it doesn't make you special or not special. You're you. That's what matters. He tapped your nose with his finger, the gravity lifting back into a forced, gentle playfulness. Besides, if you had a quirk right now, you'd probably just use it to make your hair even messier to brush. And I don't think my poor heart could take it. You giggled, the expected response. He smiled, pulling you into a tight hug, your cheek pressed against the soft cotton of his shirt. But in the dark of that hug, your mind was cold and clear. It had answered with the textbook explanation for a quirkless child. He had been so careful. And in his carefulness, the pause before the joke, the intense, almost desperate eye contact, the over-explanation, he had confirmed your deepest suspicion. Your father wasn't just a man hiding from the world. He was a man hiding from a world of quirks. And the fact that he had just, so earnestly, told you were quirkless, felt less like a statement of fact and more like a fervent, desperate prayer. He doesn't want you to have a quirk. Can I grow up to be a hero without a quirk? You asked through the hug, and he looked down at you surprised. You're already a hero, monkey. A hero that saved her dad from his darkest times and made him the happiest man in the world. He smiled, pulling your cheeks into a funny face. Your hero name should be Funny Monkey. He laughed, seeing your annoyed look through the playfulness of his hands on your still stretched cheeks. Once he let go, you wrapped your arms around him, this time to give a hug, and quietly you said, "You're my hero too, Dad." This conversation didn't help you at all. In fact, your father has now planted more questions in your mind. Did he seriously not have a quirk? Or does he have a quirk he's embarrassed of, or something? Was he embarrassed of not having a quirk? You couldn't tell if Senshi was telling the truth or not. The man was very hard to read, some reactions apparent but still not a full giveaway. And what was that about darkest times? Your 2-year-old body cannot handle any more thinking. It's time to blow some steam off, you thought. Dad, I want to go to the park and play with Tenko. You jump at his feet. Air. Let's see in a bit, Aiko. I still have food on the stove. He laughed, but it seemed forced. It's fine, you'll ask again in a bit, okay? In a bit later. Lunch is ready. You hear him call for you from the kitchen counter as he lays the dishes on the table. You rush from the living room to the kitchen area right next, waiting for him to finish setting down all the plates on the dining table. Helping you up on the kid's chair, you quickly gobble your food in a hurry, but also because it was very tasty. Slow down, you foodie. He brings a napkin to wipe the crumbs off the corner of your mouth. You don't listen and finish the food in records time. Pushing the empty plate and utensils forward a bit, you ask once again, can we go to the park now? His laughter hilts, lips holding a small smile. I think we'll have to put that on hold for now, I still got paperwork to do. He says calmly as he picks up the empty plates and into the sink. You feel oddly annoyed at that smile he gave you, for some reason giving you a feeling of unease. But work is work, and it's totally normal he's putting his work above the park right now. It's inconvenient, but you can't just sneak out of the house without him noticing. Nor will you be trying that anytime soon. You're 2 years old, you can't be hanging out alone for sure. You'll just try your luck again later. The next few hours that pass by are excruciatingly boring. The TV shows are entertaining till a point. These cartoons are far too childish for your liking. And let's not forget the constant commercials every few minutes. Just kill me already. You don't remember much memory of your childhood at this age from your past life, but you were sure as hell not as impatient as you are now. Maybe it was the phones? It's always mentioned that phones have altered our brain's chemistry through constant dopamine release, and you were sadly one of the victims to taste that corruption. But who hasn't, seriously? But what's apparent is how it definitely messed your attention span, that's for sure. Not having a phone to scroll around with was also torture. It's obviously normal for a 2-year-old to not have one yet, but you were mentally a young adult. Phone addiction was already engraved into your soul. Screw the corruption. You try coloring books for a bit, then playing with your All Might figurine, and lastly running around the house in an attempt to tire yourself out. Maybe then you'll feel like taking a nap. But nope, you've underestimated the energy of a 2-year-old kid. You're now laying on the floor like a starfish, pretending to sleep but all in vain. Dada! You call for him from the other room, too lazy after all the running. Yes. He shouts back. Are you done yet? You call again. I am. Are you bored, monkey? That got you off the floor in seconds as you scramble to his side. Let's go to the park. You happily announce. It's dark outside now. Maybe another day. He smiles, almost happy at the dark sky for arriving early despite it being summer. You gape, disbelief written over your face even as he picks you up. You frown and tap his shoulder, angry to let you down. We'll go tomorrow, yes? You ask, more a demand than a request, and wait for his approval. His smile doesn't crack, and he lightly replies. Of course, unless something else comes up. The last words spoken ominously. It's the 3rd day since your meeting with Tenko. You're once again in that starfish position on the floor, feeling empty. Yesterday, you asked to go to the park right after waking up. He made breakfast first and said, later. Then he busied himself with more work. After that came lunch, and you could tell he was deliberately making a feast just to take longer in the kitchen. Lastly, he distracted you with making a pillow fortress, which you've never had the pleasure to do before, and you forgot about the request until it was time for dinner, and sky was dark once again. Today, you asked him with wide, pleading eyes, and he almost faltered until he made another excuse. Ahem. Oops, sorry monkey. I forgot about spring cleaning, gotta catch up to that. Spring cleaning. Spring. Cleaning. It's the middle of summer, what cleaning is he talking about? Now you're sure of it. He doesn't want you to go to the park anymore. What can you possibly do in this situation? Helpless, you're now laying on the ground, sighing, till a vacuum enters your view. He nudges your small feet and you lifelessly lift one foot, then another. Meanwhile, he was smiling at your antics. Finding it silly how you rolled your body away from the spot he needs to clean before rolling back there. And at that last move he starts laughing. I repeat, he's laughing. You felt rage like none before. For the first time, angry at how he's treating you like a little child. This old man, he's laughing at me. After toying with me with fake excuses he's making up on the spot. Furious to the max, you shoot up like the undead. Fine, if he wants to play it like that, then so will you. Guess I'll have to take matters into my own hands. He messed with the wrong 2-year-old. Meanwhile, at the park, Tenko was losing hope. It's been a few days since he's met you. Ever since, he's been visiting the park daily, bugging his mom about the new friend he has made. Why isn't Aiko here yet? He was very disappointed today once again, to see you not come. Didn't you promise him? Why would you break your promise so easily like that? He felt very hopeless on the 3rd day, sure that you weren't coming anymore, and that he was the only one to consider you a friend. Maybe they're busy, hun. His mom, now, tried to reason with her son. But he shook his head stubbornly. Let's just go home, nobody's coming today either. He sadly mutters and goes to grab his mom's hand, walking her out of the park. His head was looking down on the ground with a pout, feeling devastated for thinking this time would be different. They always leave in the end. Tenku. He hears a shout in the distance, making him crank his head back up. Tenko. A small pink ball is running towards him and he immediately lets go of his mom's hand, running towards the small fur ball with the same intensity. You both stopped in front of each other, panting, until he broke the silence with quivering lips. We're here. Of course, silly. Sorry for not showing up earlier, Daddy was busy with housework. You hissed the last word, shooting the sweating father a glare, one that he knew was directed at him yet chose to not acknowledge, and just looked the other way to whistle before you turned to Tenko to grin, and he quickly gives one of his own. You were about to take his hand and run off into the playground until a figure interrupted. Oh, see? Told you your friend was just a little busy, you should have a bit more faith in your friends. Now laughs with a hand on her mouth before looking at you more properly. Hello, you must be Aiko. It's very nice to see who Tenko's always talking about. She smiles, gently lowering herself towards you. Ah, and you must be Tenko's mom. It's nice to meet you, ma'am. Your father interjects, grabbing the woman's attention. She stands up to face him and gives a gentle smile. Ah yes, the name's now Shimura. Nice to meet you too, sir. You must be the father, I presume? He nods and gives his own name, Senshi Hino. He gives a polite smile back and they both bow slightly in greeting. Mom, can we go play now? Tenko excitedly asks, too impatient to wait another second. Now laughs once again, happy to see her son so hyper, and nods for them to go. Tenko grabs your hand and runs off towards the seesaw, but not before you can quickly manage to say, nice to meet you too, Miss Tenko's mom. And then you wave at the adults while running with Tenko. Now you're the one dragging him with your small hand. You remember our promise, right? You ask with a raised eyebrow, in which he nods to quickly. I remember everything about the day we met. He says softly with a small smile. That gives you the shivers. It was very innocent but could quickly be dark and evil if taken out of context from his future self. You shake your head to get rid of the absurd thought, then you hop onto one side of the long plank. Go on. You have to fulfill your promise. You grin and he scrambles onto the other side of the seesaw. And that's how you both start squealing at the fun rhythm of up, down, over and over again. Senshi was a calculating and cold-hearted man. That's how his colleagues described him, at least. And he's long accepted that description. Lately, his daughter has been eager to go out and play in the park. But he didn't want her to go. And it was for good reasons. But the 2-year-old couldn't possibly understand his intentions, so maybe his actions came off as cold to her. He wanted to correct her and say this was for her own good but couldn't. He didn't want to trouble the small child. She didn't need to know as long as he has it under control. Which is why he has been trying to shove things under the carpet with his small excuses and white lies, or so he believed. Until the most dreadful thing in his life happened. 1 hour ago. Trying to clean the already spotless house, Senshi brought out the electric vacuum and started his job. Before he knew it, he was by his daughter's side, and she was a small starfish on the ground. Hands spread apart like she was sunbathing. Every action of hers he found adorable, but this one was truly silly. He couldn't contain the laughter. And when he did let it out in a broken chuckle, things went downhill. She shot up from the ground and stood right in front of him. Rage he'd seen in warriors shone in her eyes. Then she said the unthinkable. "I hate you, Daddy." His mouth was left agape and the vacuum in his hand dropped from his loosened grip. "Monk, Aiko. What's wrong?" He kneeled to her side checking for injuries. Did he hurt her with the vacuum without noticing? She looked like a cat that had its tail stepped on, all puffed up, back arched and fur bristling. And he couldn't understand why. "You promised 3 days ago." She held up 3 fingers up to his face. "You're going back on your promise. And I hate promise breakers." She emphasized hate again, seeing his breath hitch. But he wasn't backing down yet. He held his ground and picked up the vacuum again, ready to buy some time to think clearly. It's fine, she's just a child. How much longer can she stand to hate him anyways? He'll bribe his way back with a few candies and some pancakes if he has to. But no, she wasn't done yet. "I knew it. You don't want to take me to the park," she said solemnly. Then she took a deep breath. "I'm never calling you Daddy again, Senshi." This had him turn his head around with a snap. The blood seemed to drain from his face, leaving him pale. The casual, dad-like posture he'd held all day solidified into something rigid and cold. "Go on, keep ignoring me and continue with your cleaning, Senshi." She shooed him with her hand and turned her head away with her arms crossed, sitting on the floor stubbornly. He couldn't believe his ears. He thought they might have bled from the threats she spouted his way. Did she even know how much that word meant to him? Of course she did. Why else would she say that if she didn't? Her demeanor was not of a 2-year-old at all. Looked like a senior citizen with years of experience that served in 2 world wars. If she couldn't call him dad, is he really considered her father anymore? Fine, let the baby have it her way for a bit. She's not going to the park again. Discussion. And yet here they are. In the park. Sitting with Tenko's mom on the bench, both were more focused on watching the kids play. He didn't say much, only pleasantries, neither did she. Both of them were deep in thought. Now didn't express it very well, but she was concerned when she saw Tenko come home with a small bruise on his back. He didn't even mention the pain on his back once. Instead, he kept talking about the new friend he made. Even though it must have been painful from the way his breath hitched as she applied cream to the few bruises. He didn't mention anybody but that friend, almost as if no one else was in the park. So who else is she supposed to believe was behind these injuries? She was angry at that new friend, suspecting that they must have been the cause to the injury, but she couldn't bring herself to question the child who seemed so happy for once. Maybe she's jumping into conclusions too fast. Maybe his new friend isn't the reason behind those bruises. She prayed it wasn't, hoping her son has made an actual good friend this time. Which is why she's observing you from afar. She sees how lively and polite you were when greeting her, even though you were just as impatient as Tenko to play. But she still couldn't classify you as innocent based on just that small interaction. Oh no. She was gonna watch closely to see if you were fit to be his friend. She wouldn't allow him to hang out with you if it turns out you were a violent friend. Ahem, that sounds exactly like a certain someone from the original, I wonder who. And at that moment, Senshi shared the same thoughts as now, although in a different sense. He was also judging the child from afar. It wasn't like the kid was anything special, unlike his daughter, so why were you so hung up on playing with this kid? It sounds ridiculous, yes. He knows it too. He shouldn't be comparing who is more special than who. But he couldn't help it. His prejudice against kids wasn't helping either in this case. And why did that new friend have to be a boy? He huffed internally, feeling a bit conflicted. They're still children, yet why did you feel so grown up already? All he can do is frown. So, frown he did. You're up at the big slides once again with Tenko behind you. He seems hesitant to try it. We don't have to go on this one if you don't want to. You calmly say, patting his shoulder, but he shakes his head. I want to if you want to. You look taken aback. Was he scared you wouldn't like him if he doesn't go on the slide? But he does seem curious, and now you're the one that's nervous to go on the slide. You've already went on it once, but you weren't in an exactly sane mind at that time. No, you can't be shaken that easily. You're the older one mentally. Between the two, you must set a good example. Ha! No need to be scared then, it's just a slide like all the others were on. Only a little bigger. You emphasize with your hand, making a small pinch. I'll prove it by going first. If it's too scary, I'll let you know before you go, trust me. You grin and grip the railing as you try to step onto the slide. You don't notice, but he does, that you're slightly shaken yet still putting on a tough image. Still, he didn't mention it and nods as if to save you face. You take deep breaths in before sking the air in your mouth and jumping head on. You screech. Then comes a noof, with a thud right after. Now it's quiet. He looks nervous now, hoping you're not hurt, but cannot really see since the slide is in the shape of a tunnel tube. I'm okay, landed on my butt. You scream through the tunnel and he laughs, his shoulders relaxing. It's not scary at all, super fun. I promise. You yell again and he nods even though you can't see. I'm going in. He screams for you to make space, then hops on, holding his breath like you did earlier. Even in his fear, he stutters through his yelling. He tries close to his eyes, then feels a light at the end of the tunnel, forcing him to open his eyes back again. He's about to reach the ground before a face pops in at the tunnel exit. It was you peeking in and he tries to warn you, no, but was too late and you both crash. Ouch. You both groan off the ground with him on top of you. He quickly gets up, about to cry. I'm so sorry. He's apologizing profusely, which makes you look at him surprised. Why are you sorry? It's not your fault, it's mine. I thought you got stuck in the tunnel for taking so long. You rub your neck embarrassed and laugh. But I hurt you, he says with his head lowered and his shoulders shake like he's about to cry. You don't get to say anything more because the parents were both on each side now. Gasp. Aiko, are you okay? Your dad picks you off the floor to straighten you up and crouches to look you in the eye for any injuries. You shake your head quickly. No. I'm fine, it's okay. You grin, then look next to you to see Tenko's mom dusting his pants and shirt, his head still lowered to the ground. You don't hesitate this time. You reach out to hold his hand, making him glance up with a few tears in his eyes. It was fun, right? You smile, showing him you were truly okay. Finally his tears stop and he nods. Well, except for the landing part. He blurts out, and that has you both laughing. Your dad sighs softly after making sure you weren't lying about being okay, then stands up straight next to now. I think it's time we head back now. It was very nice meeting you, Mrs. Shimura. Oh yes, of course. You too, Mr. Hino. She scrambles on her words, then quickly feels around for her phone in her pockets. I was just thinking, since the kids seem to get along so well, we should exchange numbers so we can set up a date and time for their next play date. She smiles, holding up her phone, and Senshi's jaw tenses. Yes, of course. He pulled out his phone, but it wasn't the one he's usually on. It was a darker, sleeker one you'd only ever seen him use at his computer. That has you arching your eyebrows, eh? Since when did he have two phones? He hesitated for a millisecond over the contacts app, as if inputting her number was uploading a target into a database. You're watching this exchange intensely, meanwhile Tenko still has his gaze focused on you. But really had fun today, Aiko-kun. You don't catch his last words because of how quietly he says them, yet you nod without looking back at him, still watching the adults in deep thoughts. He doesn't mind. Very happy and content with just holding hands, which you also didn't realize you were still doing. Now that the parents were done talking, they turned to both of you, hinting that it's time to go. You quickly turn to face Tenko and squeeze his hand in assurance so he doesn't get sad that you're both about to part ways. My dad has your mom's phone number, so we don't have to wait for each other like today. Isn't that great? He smiles softly. Don't miss me too much. We'll play again soon. You laugh, then let his hand go. Bye. You're waving at him while walking away. He does too. You're both looking back every few seconds to wave until he's as small as a dot in the distance and cannot see him anymore. You then relax into a smile of your own and look up to your dad, satisfied. We gonna see them again, right? There's no winning against you, monkey. Senshi laughs dryly. You grin, thank you, daddy, and go to hug his knee. Triplets. That night, a cramp in your leg pulled you from sleep. You groaned and internally cussed at the growth pains, typical of a normal baby body. The digital clock glowed a sickly 2:17 a.m. You were about to roll over when you saw it, a sliver of blue light cutting across the floor from the living room. Silence, then the low, rhythmic tap of a single finger on a keyboard. Not the frantic typing of his side gig, but a slow, deliberate press, press, press. Like someone inputting a code or searching a database. You padded to your door, eyes groggy and heavy with sleep, that would cool against your cheek as you peeked through the crack. Senshi was hunched in the blue light of his laptop, while his sleek phone held in one hand against his ear. His back to you. Just a civilian mother. No records, no affiliation. The husband, less clear. Need a deeper dig. The pause. His voice was low, flat, devoid of all the warmth you knew. You were about to walk up to him but decided against it. This didn't seem like the right time to wake up at all. You stayed stuck to the side of the door, trying to gouge as much information as you get while pressing your head further against the crack. You tried adjusting your eyes to the light of his laptop, very bright in contrast to the darkness in your room. Once adjusted, on the screen wasn't a spreadsheet, but a grainy black and white photo, a severe-looking older man in a traditional kimono, standing before a polished wooden gate. He looked oddly familiar yet not at the same time. It was also very hard to see his face clearly from afar, but it still felt like someone you know. A family crest was visible on the wall behind the elderly man, which for some reason gave you the creeps. You didn't dare utter a word or make a noise despite the shivers running up your back, not even moving a muscle to rub at the discomfort of it all. Report back when you have more information, your father adds before ending the call. He went back to focusing on the laptop. His fingers clicked away and a new window opened, a simple, encrypted messaging client. Only one contact was listed, saved under the name Kitsune Fox. A new message was at the top, timestamped 10 minutes ago. Kitsune, movement at the main house. He's increased patrols in the prefectures neighboring yours. Not a search yet. A reminder. He still looks in the mirror and sees only your absence. Senshi's thumb hovered over the keypad. Finally, he typed, his movements sharp and final. Senshi, let him look. He'll find only his own reflection. The garden is quiet. The butterfly is asleep. Keep the gate locked. Garden. Butterfly. This was a code. You're not sure what it all means, but you were definitely the butterfly. He closed the laptop, the blue light dying instantly and plunging the room into pure darkness. You heard him sit there in the black, not moving, just breathing. A long, slow exhale that sounded like it carried the weight of a mountain. Then the soft pad of his feet. You scrambled back to bed, pulling the covers up just as your door whispered open. He stood in the doorway for a long minute, just a deeper shadow in the dark. You could feel his gaze, heavy and full of a fear no child should have to inspire. When he finally moved, it was to kneel beside your bed. His hand, cool from the night air, came to rest on your head. His touch was unbearably gentle. I'm sorry, he breathed into the silence, a sound so faint you almost thought you imagined it. What? You tried very hard to keep your breathing and face neutral. But your brows must have still scrunched up, since he removed his hand away in fear of waking you up or bringing you discomfort. I'm so sorry I have to hide you. You deserve sun, and parks, and friends, not shadows and locked gates. Please forgive this father, for he is doing the best he could to keep you safe. He stayed there until your fake, even breathing became real. When he finally left, closing the door with a soft click, the darkness felt different. It wasn't just the absence of light anymore. The love was real. You had to believe that. You had fought for a friend and won a playground. But in doing so, you might have just forced your father's other, hidden world to start drawing a map with your name at the center. And you realized, with a chill that had nothing to do with the night air, that your new friend Tenko lived in a house with its own kind of ghosts. And by dragging you both to the park, you hadn't just opened a window for yourself. You might have inadvertently shone a light on your father's carefully hidden garden, making the butterfly within suddenly, terribly visible. You couldn't believe what you overheard yesterday. Sure, your eyes might have played tricks on you from the lack of sleep and grogginess, but there's no way sleep could have played tricks on what you've heard. You've been eyeing your dad strangely since the morning, and he seems to have caught on to it as well. He made scrambled eggs for breakfast today, and as he laid the plates in front of you, he starts a staring contest. You don't realize you're playing along with him until he speaks up, "Something on your mind, monkey?" You freeze, eyes blinking as you break the contest to look down on your food. Crap. He'd noticed. The last thing you needed was him suspecting you had been eavesdropping. "I was thinking about pancakes." You hurriedly scrambled up an excuse. Pun intended. Senshi blinked, then a slow, relieved smile spread across his face. "Scrambled eggs not cutting it today, huh? You're a tough customer." He reached over and ruffled your short, fuzzy hair. "We can have pancakes tomorrow." "Deal." "Deal," you echoed, forcing a grin. You shoveled a too big forkful of eggs into your mouth to stop yourself from saying anything else. The excuse had been as messy as the food on your plate, but it had worked. For now. But it seems to be hard to think around him much. He's too observant for your own good. You were certain this was going to be hard for you to unfocus on, but you quickly got over the conversation because something else has stolen back your attention. You've long forgotten about the talk your father had the other night. Your focus had shifted to another subject, Tenko. You were exhausted from thinking the other day and felt like you needed fresh air, which is why you asked Senshi to plan an outing with Nao and Tenko. They hurriedly agreed to meet up around noon. But you waited and waited with no one showing up. You had long stopped swinging on the swing, letting your feet hang down with a slump. "Sorry to cancel last minute, but it seems we won't be able to make it for today." Nao had messaged your dad long after the time of their meetup plan. And it's been 3 days since then. Each time your dad shoots Nao a message, she would shoot it down with various excuses, but it all came to one point. They couldn't come. You had a feeling you knew what the reason was, but you truly hoped it was because they were busy. Your father had sensed your dampened mood and decided to take you out to the park throughout those 3 days. Even if you had no playmate, he thought that might cheer you up. You tried to push the useless thoughts that kept creeping to the side and play for a while, but you still couldn't shake them away, lingering. What was the point of playing anyways if you had no one to have fun with? Just like that, you sat on the sand and started staring at the big tree where you first met Tenko. Did he seriously grow on you this much in just a few meetings? Maybe it's the lack of friends you have outside of him currently. Total friends count. Sigh, was I so desperate for friends to the point of befriending a villain? You squatted with your hands on each cheek, deep in thought until you noticed a small figure move around the tree your eyes kept wandering to. Was that Tenko? You ran to the huddled figure and it really was him. He was sitting under the shade, leaning back against the tree just like back then. Except he seemed in worse condition. "Ugh, Hikaiko?" he asked between sniffles and held back sobs. He was scratching really bad around his eyes, fingers never stopping their movements even as he spoke to you. He looked as surprised as you, to see you here. Not expecting to run into you at all. "What are you doing here? Your mom said you couldn't come today." You sat down next to him in confusion. He stared blankly at you for a while before looking down at the ground. "I just wanted to come here," his words faltered as he looked up a softer gaze at you. "To the place I first met you." His thoughts trailed, finishing his sentence. You kept trying to hold his hands in your own to stop him from the scratching, but he still wriggled them out to scratch further. "It's too itchy," he cried again, annoyed at himself for not being able to stop it. He wanted to gouge his eyes out and scratch at them thoroughly to get rid of the itch. Dig under his skin until he couldn't feel anything anymore. And true to his thoughts, his nails started leaving trails and cracking his still delicate skin. You furrowed your brows as you watched him, unsure of how to help. Maybe this will work. Tenko was itching roughly through his tears until something cold touched his cheek. He looked surprised to the side and saw you holding a small water bottle against his face. You took it out of your small shoulder bag strapped to you. Stuffed with small items your father deemed necessary for you to keep on while outside, unaware of the true reason he had this bag strapped to you. "Hold this on the area that itches. It might help a little," you offered, hoping it could bring some relief to the child. He didn't question it further, just nods and held it close under his eyes. After a few seconds of scratching with the other hand, his movements slowed. It felt better than before, nice even. You watched him calmly as his breathing evened out and he was just hiccuping from the earlier crying session. At least he isn't anymore. So, You came after all. I was so bored without you here. You got up from the ground with your hands on your hips, looking down at him with a big grin. Since you're here already, let's go play. You exclaim before taking his free hand and dragging him off to the playground. He doesn't say much and just lets you be, watching with wide eyes how easily you could make him feel better and forget about all bad things he's been through in the past 3 days. His lips slowly arch upwards till he starts also laughing alongside you. He hopes these small moments would last a bit longer and would come around more often in the future. But Dad, it's still early to go home. I want to play a bit more. You whined, pulling against his grip on your arm in resistance. You know it was going to be dark soon and it wouldn't be suitable for you to play any longer, but you certainly didn't want to leave Tenko alone at this moment. You could really sympathize with him when you think about his childhood, his father especially. He reminded you of your father from the past, which had fueled your anger towards him. If you ever saw the man in person, you'll make sure to give him a hell of his own, thought, and squeezed your baby fist. Right now, you know better than anyone how hard it must be for young Tenko. He's probably been scolded for the last 3 days, if not more. It was a miracle the boy was still able to smile after all the brutal comments his father must have hurled his way. Aiko, it's too late for playtime now. You too, Tenko. You should both get home now. He smiled gently at the boy and Tenko seemed to flinch when he mentioned home. Very great timing to mention home. You threw your hands in the air and frowned at him, leaving the poor man confused at what he even said wrong. Before you can speak to Tenko, you hear a panicked voice from afar call his name. Tenko! It was now running our way, obviously disheveled. He gasped, not expecting to be caught, and right in front of you no less. You were confused at why he also looked panicked, then you realized. He snuck out the house. Oh, thank God you're safe. She hugged him in assurance before pulling back from him and frowned in anger, but still full of concern. How could you just leave to the park without letting anyone know? She scolded him and he winced, looking away and to the ground, sneaking a glance up at you before flushing red. He must be really embarrassed to be scolded in public, right in front of his friend no less. You knew you should stay out of this, but still couldn't leave your friend face shame in public on his own. Hello, Tenko's mom. Tenko was safe all day playing with me. I think he just missed me too much, so I guess it's my fault. Soe. You childishly apologized and bowed clumsily, trying to calm the situation with baby cuteness. Tenko looked at you with a raised eyebrow, very much confused at your baby act. Now looked down at the two of you and bit her lips to stop any further comments. Then she sighed and greeted you back in Senshi as well. Thank you for looking after him while I wasn't here. I'm sorry to cut this short, but we have to go now. Have a good day, Sir Hino and Aiko. She grabbed Tenko's arm and started pulling him away. He looked back with a small smile and waved shyly, while you waved back more enthusiastically, screaming in your mind au revoir. Were you getting too attached to this kid? You're not sure. But what you do know is that the current Tenko wasn't too bad. You're definitely going to be bonding more from now on. On the walk back to the apartment, you sensed your dad looking around more alert than before. What you didn't sense, however, was the presence of a third figure in the empty streets. Your dad acts as naturally as ever, putting on a big smile as you pass by one of the smaller stores on your way. He points at one of them. Look, Aiko. I heard this store has the limited edition gummy bears you were dying to try. He grins in success as he looks down on you, knowing he's grabbed your attention. You both hurry to the store now, with you walking in the front, making your way before him into the store. Of course, he's right behind you, following you inside, but not before shooting a sharp glance out the entrance towards the dark space afar. Dad's gonna go to the bathroom for a second. Let the nice lady over there point you to the gummy bears aisle so you can pick the one you want in the meantime. He smiles politely at the employee before making his trip towards the back. Thank you for shopping at 20. The woman at the cashier says in a friendly voice and waves at the both of you with a smile. You were too busy trying to pry open the gummy bears packet open to notice as you hurry behind your father. He stops you both at the exit entrance door before leaving, helps you open the packet and kneels down to put a dark cap and mask on the both you, which you didn't even realize he had bought alongside the treat. That pried your attention away from the now opened gummy bears pack in your hand. He senses your worry and crinkles his eyes in a smile behind the mask, We gotta wear these masks more often now, with the approach of winter and the amount of people coughing left and right. I can't have my dear Aiko getting sick, can I? You squeal when he goes to attack your ticklish spot, then flings you up into his arms. You giggled uncontrollably, and when he finally let go, did you frown at your dad? He managed to lower your guard there for a second, but the hat reminded you this wasn't a simple winter problem. There is definitely something going on, but you can't have your father sense that you know about that something. You'll just have to play your role as the naive little daughter. Wow, now that you think about it, you both really are the ultimate father and daughter duo. Each of you was good at acting their own role and pretending to be clueless and feigning ignorance. No DNA test needed there. You are the father. And true to your role, you just smile giddily through the mask at your father, while still in his arms. His steps were a bit lighter than before, and you pretended not to notice. Just took out a gummy bear and held it to your father, waiting for him to slide down his mask and pop it in his mouth. He does, with an exaggerated chomp, and you imitate him taking down your own mask to pop the gummy bear. Nom. Oh wow, these gummies are amazing. You should pester your dad for more next time. Temporarily awestruck by the tasty gummy bears, combined with your loud chewing, you don't notice the camera aimed at you both from afar, and you miss the sound of shutter. Click click. 20 minutes earlier. Demenit, that fking bstd. A shabby guy's voice echoed through the dark alley. He was in a bad shape, bloody, clutching his side with one hand, and staggering to walk while supporting his weight with the other hand. He has to report this to the leader quickly before that insane man goes rampant again. No, worse, before the other demented person makes a stupid move. Tell the boss and the others that have been lurking around here to stop the tailing before I get seriously mad. The man's voice rang in his ears. Smack. The man punched him in the jaw, sending him flying between the trash cans, before flexing his wrist like he was just stretching. Don't test my patience. This is my last warning. His blue eyes that usually looked at you with warmth were filled with danger at that moment. The deep blue color of the ocean felt like it was suffocating the man in front of him, unconsciously making the shady man's breathe shallow. Just as he was about to land one more hit at the man on the ground, he heard a squeal from the inside of the building, grabbing Senshi's attention back there. The fucker smiled so gently it felt like a whole different person from the one that just landed a punch on him seconds ago. Oh, gotta go, my toilet trip has stretched too long. He smiled to himself before turning back to stare down at the stalker. You should be thankful for my daughter you're leaving with just a few mild injuries. Don't forget to deliver the message. Yeah, the gangster was thankful for sure. Thankful he got away with all limbs intact. But that also had the man wondering, didn't the man seem unusual? He actually held back and seemed more soft. Could that creature be the reason? The man bit his lips at the groan that escaped him when he accidentally tightened his hand on his side, digging his fingers into the injury. Demenit. This is not the time for daydreaming. I have to get to Psycho number 2 quickly before he sees off number 1. But sadly it was far too late, because said Psycho was already taking pictures of the duo as he sprints to warn the rest of the group. Happy birthday, dear Aiko. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Everyone clapped and you finally leaned forward to blow the candles with a big huff. Open my present first, Aiko. You and Tenko now celebrate your 3rd birthday. It's been very quiet and peaceful lately, nothing out of the usual at all. The last time your father had looked tense was 5 months ago, back from your limited edition Gummy Bears trip. You've been getting along better and better with Tenko. And you're never bored when hanging out together. Today, at your birthday party, he looked the most excited to be here, as if it was his own birthday. Gasp. You got me a gift? You chuckled, taking the box from his hand while observing the cute wrapping but badly tied ribbon on the top. I helped with the wrapping. Hannah raises her hand, grinning with pride at her handiwork. And I did the ribbon. Tenko jumps in a little quieter. He must have just realized how messy it looked when the gift box became in my hands. Whoa. You did so good, Tenko. And you too, Hannah. You try to assure the kid it still looked awesome, and he smiled shyly. Hannah, Tenko's older sister, was 7 years old. You didn't get to know her until recently when you went to celebrate Tenko's birthday. Yes, he's older than you, but only by a few months. And from there on, You were all hanging out together more often as a trio whenever Hana was free and not in elementary school. She was very shy at first, kind of like her brother, but quickly warmed up to you like the social butterfly she was. Come on, Aiko. Hurry up with the gifts already, you still have a few more. She ushered you, seeming to also be waiting her turn to give you her own gift. You don't waste any more time and unwrap the gift meticulously, paying attention to the details of the small doodles on the sides. As you finished unwrapping, you were left with just lifting the top lid of the box. You held your breath when you saw what was inside. It was filled to the brim with small items here and there. First thing you noticed were the scattered Poco-themed little stationery items. Poco-themed eraser, a small pen, a very cute charm, and loads of collectible stickers. Poco was a cute bear character from your favorite gummy bears brand, which you later learned had a variety of different snacks, all in which you fell in love with. There was also a cute hand-drawn picture of you three holding hands. You assumed Hana had helped a little with the overly colorful flowers framing the painting. And in the corner was a very sloppy, "Happy Birthday, Aiko," written message. You again guessed Hana must have helped in some way. There were some wrapped candies too, decorated around the corners. Every small item made you smile wider and wider. Your cheeks ached from how much you arched your lips at this point. But when you saw the last item in the box, your smile cracked. You felt a twitch in your eyebrows but quickly masked it with a giggle as you pulled the plushie out of the box. What's this, Tenko? Did you pick this yourself? You asked, irritated and confused at why it had to be him of all people. Tenko nodded enthusiastically. I wanted to get you All Might, but since you already have him, I got you the second strongest, Endeavor. He held his hands in the air, happy at his choice, and you couldn't help but laugh genuinely at his thoughtfulness. Tenko had come to your house a few times to play and saw the few All Might figurines you already had, making him give up on the idea of gifting you another plush of him. Why would he get you a duplicate anyways? And from all your conversations he learned you seem to really appreciate heroes, so who better than the second-ranked hero to gift you? Thank you, thank you, thank you. You pulled him into a hug in which he also reciprocated back with his own small hands embracing you. Now, nudging Senshi, who had his arms crossed over his chest, telling him how cute the two babies looked. He smiled, happy as long as you were two, even with the small-scaled birthday. It was your first birthday with someone other than your father, so he worried you wouldn't feel comfortable or dislike the slightly bigger crowd. His worries were for nothing, seeing as how excitedly you enjoyed their presence without a hint of discomfort. It was bittersweet knowing he can't celebrate these days alone with you anymore. But it was your special day to enjoy, not his. Oh wait, he can just monopolize you on his birthdays? Yes. Senshi grinned, giving now the wrong impression that he found the hugging children just as adorable as she had. Hana nudged the two of you, waiting with a raised eyebrow for her own gift's turn. You chuckled as you pulled away and went right back to unwrapping the second gift. She also got you a cute drawing with a few accessories, headband, bracelet, and a hairpin. They all were in bright pastel colors that made you itch to try them. You hugged her and muffled a thank you, before pulling back and getting to work on the next gifts. You didn't notice the weird look Tenko gave you as he looked between the small accessories and you. Now brought you a small plushie and a pair of cute pajamas, and your dad, just as you'd expected, got you 3 gifts for your 3rd birthday. A coloring book, All Might pencil case, and Legos. The 3 kids awed the Lego set with sparkly eyes, and you all quickly tore the box apart, ready to get playing right away. Let's go build the house. You called the 2 kids behind you and went to your bedroom to play. Come back here, you villain. Tenko pointed and his fake heroic cape fluttered behind him. You followed suit, jumping on the bed next to him, pulling out a plush sword and aiming at the villain, Hana. Wah! You'll never catch me. She laughed evilly, then started making a beeline to the hallway, trying to escape from the bedroom. You gasped and frowned in character, shouting behind the villain, I won't let you escape, villain. Tenko nodded behind you, also yelling an assertive in the air. Even with all 3 brains combined, the Lego set was not completed and you had to try very hard to pretend you couldn't read the instructions guideline showing every step for each part. Also, why were the catalog pictures so miniature? You barely could tell which part is which. And it tired the heck out of you 3, which is how you came to the agreement of playing another game. What else but the famous villain versus heroes game? Running after each other for a while, you don't notice how much time has passed since. It was already time to leave when Now called for the kids from the kitchen to get ready. FO leave in 10 minutes. Hana whined while Tenko pouted, then left to the door to get his shoes on. You waited with them at the entrance to get ready, also feeling slightly sad to part. Hana gave you a quick hug saying she'll miss you, knowing she had schoolwork to do and less time to spend with you. Meanwhile, Tenko played with his thumbs like a restless puppy. Finally, Now appeared at the door entrance with your dad, saying her farewells, then turned to look down at you. Again, happy birthday, Aiko. I know you'll grow up to be a very pretty lady soon. She winked at you and Tenko interrupted. Why would Aiko be a pretty lady? He's gonna be a strong hero. He tilted his head confused. Everyone else seemed confused as well. You of all five especially. Someone voiced out your very own question. It was Hana. Wait, Tenko, did you think Aiko was a boy this whole time? Hana laughed delirious. You just pointed at yourself. There must be a misunderstanding. I'm a girl, Tenko. You smiled and he looked back at you in horror. Aiko-kun is a girl? He spluttered and your father frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Yeah. Do I not look pretty like a girl? You pouted playfully, kind of having fun at this new revelation Tenko just discovered. No. I mean, you always look pretty, Aiko, but you look exactly like your dad. So, he looked shyly at his shoes, cheeks red like a tomato from embarrassment. You kind of get where he's coming from. Your hair was short and curly, the curls making your hair appear shorter than it should be, slightly above the ears. You always dressed up in tomboyish clothes, not really bothering to wear skirts or any kinds of accessories, because you're just a kid. You're supposed to be playing outside, and wearing a skirt or something like a dress would definitely hinder that. The name Aiko was also androgynous, very commonly used by both men and women. Oh, and let's not forget the very cutesy nickname your father has for you, Monkey. Whereas other fathers call their daughters Sweetheart, Princess, maybe even Muffins, your dad picked Monkey. You couldn't fault him either. None of your behaviors were close to the other nicknames you had in mind. Yeah, Monkey suits you pretty well actually. No wonder the child misinterpreted you as a boy. Oh, and you never corrected him whenever he called you Aiko-kun. That one's on you. Japanese was still pretty confusing and you weren't fully used to it yet. Especially the part where you have to call others by their last names out of politeness. So far you've called everyone you've come across by their first names, but since you were a kid, nobody bothered to correct you or get offended by it. Your brain is still adjusting to it despite the numerous times your father pointed it out. Are you mad you found out your best friend is a girl? You teased Tenko and he straightened up at the words. Best friend? He repeated just to be sure. What? You don't want to be best friends anymore, Tenko? Don't tell me you're still afraid of cooties. You dramatically gasped and covered your mouth, causing the others in the room to laugh. No. I still want to be best friends. He pouted and looked up at his mom for help. I'm very sure Tenko likes Aiko even as a girl. She smiled and patted Tenko on the head, making him nod profusely in agreement at his mom's words. Great. You laugh and give the boy one last hug before they leave. And as you hugged, he softly whispered, I'm very happy Aiko is my best friend. You now understood how much you truly were attached to this kid. Me too. You exclaim and waved bye to each other, promising to finish the Lego set together soon. Daddy? What is this? You asked, holding a mirror aimed at your face. What you saw in the reflection was a poorly done pigtail. What's wrong? I did exactly like the video said. He held up his phone and stared intently at the instructions once again, skipped to the final results, and then he looked up at you. No matter what, the resemblance was never found. Your hair has grown slightly longer and your father was trying very hard to come up with a cute hairstyle for you. Sadly, he seems to have no talent for hairstyling. It's okay, I just want a small ponytail. You smiled and patted his shoulder. It was ridiculous to have your hair tied even in a ponytail, because all that came out was a small fountain in the back. You were only looking forward to tying your hair today in hopes of using the small hair tie Hana gave you. He complied, and the results were a-okay. You flexed the small curl in the back with satisfaction and quickly got off his lap to give him a small squeeze. Thanks, Dad. I'll try to tie my hair next time. Monkey. Don't give up on your dad. I'll try harder next time. He theatrically reached out to you and fell to the ground like a wounded soldier. You roll your eyes and move away from his reach, leaving him on the ground till he laid flat on his stomach and his forehead reached the floor. Stop being a drama queen, let's go, Dad. You ushered your dad up using your small arm to lift his own before he finally got up. He sighed, muttering, "When did my child grow up so big?" And something about, "She called me a drama queen, but you paid it no attention. Today you were going to meet up with Tenko again in the park. It hasn't been long since you've last met at your birthday party, but you still missed him. Attachment issues sure run deep when you're an only child with no friends." On the way to the park, which was way before the meet-up time, just because you were too excited to wait, you passed by a toy store that seemed to have Heroes merch. You had brought 2 plushies to play with Tenko, All Might and Endeavor, but you still needed a third. You forgot about it, but it should be more fair to play with 2 heroes and 1 villain. How can you only play with a villain and a hero? HM? Who's the villain? You were gonna use Endeavor for that, duh. Since they don't make villain merch, for obvious reasons. So you dragged your father to the store and started browsing around the toys section. In there, you overhear the talk of a mother and her child. "Mom, but I wanted All Might," a sad whisper came from the child. The mother looked troubled. "I'm sorry, but I can only afford this one." She tried to negotiate, but the kid said more stubbornly, "I just want All Might." Before storming off to the inner side of the shop, you peeked from the aisle and saw the face of the mother, just letting him go without chasing after him. That conversation made you extremely uncomfortable, and it didn't sit right with you to just leave them alone. And so, you followed the direction of where the mother was staring at. You reached the end corner of the shop and knew there was nowhere else for him to go. "Hey!" You started to speed before you turned around from the aisle to see a very familiar face crouching down. That ash blonde hair, those golden brown eyes, and the red feathers peeking behind. There was no denying who this was. It's Hawks. But your excitement at meeting him quickly diminished when you studied the curled-up figure. The sight of him small, vulnerable, already hollowed out sent a jolt through you that was part fan recognition, part forensic analysis. This wasn't the sleek-winged hero. This was the source code. The commission's perfect blank slate, sitting in a discount toy aisle. Your adult mind saw a tragic system in its boot-up phase. Your toddler heart just saw a sad boy who wanted an All Might toy. Well shoot, here goes my first meeting with a future hero. How is it that you only come across important characters at their worst time? You paused your speech and he noticed you eyeing his feathers, making him crouch down further and try to make them less visible with his hands. Oh no, he must be having a big misunderstanding right now. "Sorry, I just find your feathers really pretty. I didn't mean to stare." You sheepishly say and scratch your cheek awkwardly. He looks up surprised, but only for a bit before hugging his knees tighter and lowering his gaze down again. "I heard you like All Might, me too." You try to grab his attention. He looks up. "Mission success. I'm gonna be a hero when I grow up. Do you want to be a hero?" You question and he seems taken aback. "I'm not sure," he replies quietly like a whisper. Maybe right now wasn't the best time to question him about that. "Oh, well, I really like this plushie, but I think you'd appreciate him more than me." You hold out All Might to him and his eyes widen, the empty look in his eyes replaced with a small spark. Oh shoot, now that you think about it, his first toy was Endeavor, and it also seems to be an important part of the story. It doesn't sit right with you to replace the original like that. And I don't know if you like Endeavor, but you can also have him. You add, quickly handing out both plushies in front of you to him. He looks surprised, confused even. "Why?" he mutters, making you feel awkward. "Why were you interfering indeed? Was it pity?" Some of it, but that longing in his deeply hollow eyes also felt very similar. You just didn't want to see that look on his face any longer. I can tell how much you like heroes, I just wanted to give these to you." Yeah, even if he wasn't an important character, you would have still given up your toy to anyone with that same look he was giving you. At least you know he'd cherish the plush much more than you would. He hesitantly took the toys from your hands and brought them close to his chest. Once they were securely in his hold, he couldn't stop the shy smile that greeted his lips. You smiled back and was about to leave when you heard your father call your name from the other hallway, until a hand pulled you slightly by the arm. The young boy stood up, towering over you slightly. And he seemed older than you now that you took a better look at him. I don't have anything nice to give back, but since you said my feathers are pretty, I want to give you one. He quickly lets go of your arm once he finishes his sentence and hands you a red feather with the same empty hand that clung to you earlier. You accepted it with a whoa bubbling from your mouth before you can stop it at the soft texture of the feather. You grinned at him and he looked nervous at the thought you might not like it. You shook his hand in appreciation. I love it. Thank you for the feather. You enthusiastically added, making his shoulders relax, and he nodded back at you. Thank you too. He said more quieter than you. You didn't mind, just giggling at how cute and nice young Kigo was. You felt the urge to speak more with the slightly taller boy before you heard your father's voice echo with a little more urgency than before. Aiku. I have to go. It was really nice meeting you, Kigo. You run off before he has a chance to say anything more. Failing to realize you've blurted out his name. Aiko, he quietly whispered to the now empty aisle. Where have you been, Aiko? Senshi crouched to your side and you quickly point at the hallway you were at, far away from the toys aisle. What were you doing there? He asked like he was out of breath and slightly angry. You've never left his side like this before and he thought something bad must have happened to you because of it. You quickly apologized, saying you saw something interesting, and he bonked your head at the half-butted sorry. A3. You wince and rub your head at the spot he lightly touched. He didn't even apply any force in order not to hurt you, but it still hurt your pride to be scolded in public. He was about to apologize for hurting you at the small sound you made, but stopped himself when he saw you come back empty-handed. Aiko, what happened to your toys? He asked with a scarier frown, although not exactly directed at you. He gave it to a friend. You quickly say, trying to ease the anger in his eyes. You gave it? Why would you when you brought the toys outside to play with Tenko? He asked again, not really buying what you're saying. It was half the truth. He catches on very quickly. Did anyone take them from you by force? He adds, making you jump up a little at his wrong conclusion. No. I just wanted to give it to them, honestly. They gave me a gift too, see? You quickly hold up the red feather and his eyes narrow at the thing you call gift. Don't give out your toys to strangers anymore, okay, Aiko? You sighed and nodded with a small okay, before apologizing once again for worrying him and leaving his side. He sighed as well and picked you up this time, not risking the chance of you wiggling away without his notice again. Especially not after you did that seconds ago. I think you'll have to pass on buying a toy today. Let this be a lesson to not leave your dad's side without his notice again. He booped your nose and you nodded in shame. You both leave the store, and you grumble in his hold as you turn your head to rest your chin on Senshi's shoulder. You stared back at the store, about to politely wave at the employees, only to come across golden-hued eyes staring at you. You paused mid-wave, and he smiled, hugging the two toys tighter before waving back at you shyly. You grinned at the cute gesture, feeling your heart fill with warmth and pride for your earlier actions. But a bigger feeling was topping over that pride. You felt a strange, dual-layer guilt. The meta-guilt of interfering with canon, and the simpler, more human guilt of leaving him alone. You'd given him toys, but you were just another person walking away. The feather in your hand wasn't a gift, it was a receipt. Proof of a transaction where you tried to buy a piece of his future happiness with a couple of plushies, and it felt pathetically insufficient. Yet overall, you definitely don't regret giving him your toys, even if that earned you a stern scolding. You just wish this little interaction didn't do more damage than good. You arrived to the park early and nobody was in sight. So you started playing by yourself and running around freely before being stopped by a friendly voice. Oh, aren't you the pretty girl who lives with her father at XX? A middle-aged woman stops you in your spot. She was pushing a stroller back and forth as she spoke to you. Why did she know about your living arrangement? Is your father's paranoia rubbing off on you? You felt uneasy at the way she spoke about you, but also felt it was too rude to ignore her greetings. Hello. You smiled awkwardly and bowed like your father had taught you. Oh ho, so polite. She reached forward to grab your cheek, and before she could, your father pulled you to him and caught her by the wrist. For a split second, you swore he was glaring, before he put on a small smile and bowed at the woman in apology. My child gets uncomfortable around strangers. He pulls you behind him and her eyes narrowed for a second. Strangers? Oh no, I'm very sad to hear that distant title. I thought you also recognized me from next door. I didn't mean to offend anyone. The woman laughed awkwardly, covering her mouth lightly, but it seemed slightly forced. She then turned to glance at you and you had to put on a small smile out of politeness. I'm Rina Ito, and this is my grandson Nagi Ito. She turned the stroller around showing a small newborn. Your dad quickly added to the greeting, "Oh, you look so young, I thought you must be the mother." He laughed softly and you internally clicked your tongue, not buying his act. Oh wow, never knew my father could be such a snake in disguise. The elder woman seemed to like the compliment too much, laughing heartily, oh ho 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 ho, and her hand did nothing to hide the smug look on her face. My, it feels very refreshing to hear that coming from such a handsome gentleman. You are too polite, sir. Senshi Hino, and my daughter Aiko Hino. He quickly introduced you both and the woman stopped laughing to smile. It's very nice to meet you too. We always wonder who was the mysterious family living next door for the past 2.5 years. She narrowed her eyes again and you felt like this granny was a very difficult person. She was being nice, but it felt too much. Is this how older people are usually like? You weren't used to interacting with the elderly, so it did feel sticky. Maybe you're judging too quickly, so you forced your discomfort to the side and stepped forward to the woman. Nice to meet you, Ito-san. You bowed and looked up quickly to make sure you spoke correctly. She still had an eased smile on her face, so you breathed a sigh of relief internally. She's adorable. Why don't we ever see her at the neighborhood playgroup? She just turned 3 years old, it felt too early to take her out for playgroups. He said politely, throwing a hand over your head. Oh, it's not early at all, you should definitely come for next time. I have my other grandson who's also 3, he'd be a great playmate. She smiled and then went on to add, by the way, are you single? It's very strange to see the father take out his child to the park. Where's her mother? She asked lightly, but even you knew that was too rude of a question on a first encounter. Aiko! A small voice called from afar. Great timing, Tenko. You praised the young boy with a small fist and your father quickly turned to wave to the granny with a smile. It seems our company is here, have a nice day. You both took off. Aiko, hello. Tenko greeted you warmly and you ran towards him, happy to see his face after that encounter with a neighbor. Hi. I came early today because I missed you so much. You hold his hand and his cheeks feel warmer at your words. Me too. I came early today, he added and pulled you by the hand to go play. You let him drag you, happy to see him initiate it first. Today, you both sat at the sandbox and started using all the tools available to make a grand castle with a small fence around it. You didn't notice how both of you were hoarding all the tools until you noticed a small girl with 2 braids staring from a distance at you too. This park was fairly quiet and rarely had any kids visit it besides the elderly, like you've seen earlier, so you don't feel the glance of the young kid until later. Once you noticed her figure, she turned away and looked shy, hiding behind a tree. You waved at her to come closer and she does, feeling a little more bold than earlier. They just need a little push. Hi. You say, and she has her hands behind her back looking shy as she quietly mutters, hello. Do you want to use some of the tools to play? You offer and Tenko watches the two of you quietly. She nods and gets closer to take a small bucket before Tenko pulls it back from her reach. But we need this for the castle? He looks at you, questioning. We can just use that one. You point to the one you already have in your hand. But we came here first. You look surprised at his raised voice, and he apologizes, not meaning to yell at you. The girl looks between the two of you nervously. And you feel pressured, unsure of how to fix this. Would you like it if another kid came before us and didn't allow anyone to play with any of the sandbox tools? You asked gently and he seemed to think about it for a second before shaking his head in a no. It wouldn't be nice to her either. Lashir. Just like you and me shared our candy last time. He doesn't look exactly pleased, but still does as said. He gives the girl the bucket and a few more tools. She smiles and bows her head clumsily, then goes to the opposite side of the sandbox to play alone. You also smile, proud to see Tenko learn so quickly. It's fine for kids to be a little possessive of their toys and tools. What's important is to correct this behavior early on. Yes. You nodded to yourself and Tenko just stares at you in silence. You notice him stare, and you give him the bucket thinking that's what he's waiting to use. He doesn't say anything and just smiles as he continues helping with the structure of the fence. It's been a while, and you're half finished with the castle. You seem just as giddy about how it turned out as Tenko. But one thing that's bothering you is the small girl playing in the back that keeps glancing your way. She seemed to very much want to play with you both, but you can see the hesitance in her eyes. You don't comment and only smile at her whenever you make eye contact, hoping she'll warm up to you both soon. And she does. Your small gestures must have given her the courage to approach you both. Hello again. I'm Nina. Can I play with you too? She asks and glances between you and Tenko, but mostly you. Your mouth opened in a big, happy grin and you nodded. Yeah. I'm Aiko, and this is Tenko. We're building a castle. You're too focused on making the girl comfortable to notice the small pout on Tenko's lips. He moved to make space for the girl to sit, and she does. Instead, he sits especially close to you, keeping distance between the girl and him. He's shy, you thought, and smile unconsciously. You can work on the right side. Me and Tenko are gonna finish up the fence from here. You instruct her and she nods but still seemed like she had more to say. You're so good at this, Tenko. You praise seeing how well his handicraft was. He looked smug and puffed his chest out in pride before shooting a small smirk towards Nina. Aiko, is this good? Nina suddenly spoke up, grabbing your attention. You looked down at a slightly messy upper wall of the castle and had to force a small smile as to not embarrass the kid's hard work. Maybe you can do it a little bit more like this, yeah? You show her how to collect the sand more properly, and she nods like an enthusiastic student. Aiko-chan, can you finish this side with me? Tenko spoke up, and you shuffle back to his side after making sure Nina understood the basics. Not too long in with the fence, Nina calls out for you again, which results in a back-and-forth call between Nina and Tenko, each calling for your help. You've had enough and cross your arms with a frown. They're just kids. You try to remind yourself, but your body is also just that of a kid. Gimme a break. Tenko, how about you help Nina with the castle and I'll finish the fence? You're better at this than me, you can teach her better. You usher him and he tries to protest, but, You hear none of it and just push the two next to each other in hopes this will bring the two closer together. And also to have a break from their tug-of-war game. You hear a loud pitched scream from Nina and you quickly whip up your head from the ground to stare at the two in front of you. You couldn't tell what happened, but it seemed bad if Tenko was glaring. What's wrong? You ask as you hurry to Nina's side, patting her shoulder softly, and she starts to cry. You don't get out what she's saying because it's very inaudible through the sobs, only catching the word, "it hurts," coming out of her mouth as she rubs a spot over her head. So, you look towards Tenko to explain instead. He's glaring worse than earlier and staring intently at how you're comforting her. You looked shocked at this point and he stood up, pulling your hand away from Nina's side. Aiko is my best friend. He snarls at Nina, making her cry harder. You don't get what's going on yet, but you're starting to get angry at how unnecessarily harsh Tenko is acting towards Nina. Tenko, be honest, did you hurt Nina? And I don't mean with just fists. You frown and he looks flustered. Why are you on her side? You're supposed to be. He doesn't get to continue before Nina cuts in, pointing at him with snot going down her face. He hit me with the shovel, she exclaims, and you look back at him shocked. He doesn't deny it and just stares hard at the girl, making her flinch. She said she wants to be best friends. I said I don't wanna. Then she said she will just be best friends with Aiko-chan instead? He looks back at you like he was the victim in this situation, which really irked you. So that makes it okay to hit her? You ask again, hoping to reason out with him. You don't believe the saying violence isn't the answer, because sometimes it is the answer. Just not right now for sure. Nobody deserves to be hit for such a petty reason. He winces as if hurt and looks down at his feet, guilty. No, Well, that's because it's not okay to hurt someone unreasonably like that. She can be best friends with whoever she wants as long as the other party agrees. You get what I mean, right? You ask him, and Nina looks between the two of you frustrated before crying out again in an outburst. You quickly go to her side and pat her back soothingly before turning your head towards Tenko with a strict tone. Tenko? You did something wrong, so you should apologize. You point out. I'm sorry, Nina. He says, complying very politely, and you let a small smile appear on your lips. You look down at Nina, who didn't seem satisfied with the apology, and she turns up at you. I don't forgive you, Mine. Aiko, stop being best friends with him and be my best friend. She holds your hand and she's about to cry again at the expression you make her way. You don't have to accept his apology, but I can't just be your best friend, we only just met each other? You raise an eyebrow, confused at this erratic behavior. You feel Tenko, whose breath hitched at her words, relax when you declined her request. But I want to be your best friend. The little girl yells and says the most logical thing that comes to her 3-year-old mind. You wince at her grip on your hands getting more forceful. You try to wriggle your hand away and she squeezes it further with the strength of an adult. What the hell? Is this normal strength for a toddler? You are starting to feel threatened by the little girl in front of you. Ouch, Nina, let go of my hand please. Say a little more panicked as you realize the girl in front of you wasn't very normal. Her abnormal strength must have something to do with her quirk, and she starts to tremble when you raised your voice at her, albeit from the pain. No! She yelled back and your hand started to ache in her grip. Not until we become best friends. The child was clearly unstable and you had to look over to Tenko, who seemed a bit scared and worried. Call my dad, Tenko. Go! You tell him to leave and Nina seems angry at you for ignoring her. Why does this happen the first time I try to befriend another child besides Tenko? Aiko-kun. Stop ignoring me, she says with another squeeze, and then you quickly realize the situation. Oh wow, another child that mistook me for a boy. Should you feel offended at this point? I am a girl, Nina. It's not Aiko-kun, it's Aiko-chan. You speak through the pain, understanding this little girl might have been jealous because of a small crush on you, also mistaking you for a boy. You try to turn your head to show the cute small hair tie holding your hair in the back as proof. She processes your words and immediately lets go of your hands, her own trembling slightly when she saw the red mark of her grip blooming on your pale skin. Triple. You wince as you rub your wrists, and before you can speak to the girl more sternly, your father pulls your hands up to inspect them with worry etched in his face. What happened? Who did this to you? He said, his voice raised in anger, as he frowned at you. You now realize that maybe it was a bad idea to call your father for help. He had just worried about you earlier in the store. What if this incident fuels his overprotectiveness further? This day isn't going well at all. You tried to diffuse the situation by waving your hands in feigned indifference to the pain, but he still managed to see the twitch in your eyebrows when you moved them. Was this girl Nina? Tenko intervenes, pointing to the shaken girl who looks extremely pale from the glare your father shoots her way. Did you use your quirk on my daughter? Do you know the harm you could have caused? He scolds and barely holds himself from raising his voice any further, knowing this child wasn't any older than his own to understand the consequences. Dad, it's fine, I'm okay. Let me talk with her. You pat his hand and he looks down with his fists clenched before taking a deep breath and nodding your way. You approach the girl's side and she flinches when you try to hold her shoulder, somewhat scared, maybe guilty? Okay, but I'm the one hurt here. Why are you flinching instead? You felt bad about the way she flinched, making you feel unnecessary guilt for no reason. What you did was not cool. You can't force people to be your best friend, even if you like them. And you used your quirk as well, which wasn't heroic at all. You frown her way, noting the way her eyes widen when you mentioned, not heroic. You could have hurt me even more seriously, Nina. You should never use your quirk again on someone like that, you calmly say and let out a deep breath you were holding once you see the guilty expression and the way her head hung low in shame. She finally nods at your words and you were about to leave when she tried to grab your shoulder. Tenko reacted faster than her, catching her wrist by surprise before she can grab onto you. Ah! She exclaims and Tenko lets go of her hand nimbly. You turn back to see her on the verge of tears again, before she quickly tries to speak out. I'm sorry, Aiko. Please don't get mad at me. Can we still be friends, please? You felt pity for the girl that was apologizing, but it didn't feel exactly sincere. You're only saying sorry because you want me to forgive you, not because you truly are sorry. I don't think I can accept your apology, Nina. You say with a sad frown, hurt by the actions of your supposed second friend. Guess you're back to having one friend again. You huffed and took in your father's hand, walking away from the sandbox and to the benches afar. Not looking back once to the child you left behind. Were you being too childish? Maybe a bit too mature and harsh on a 3 to 5-year-old child? You couldn't tell if what you did or said even made any sense to the girl with her small age, but what you could tell was how lucky you were to have Tenko as your first friend. Walking away from the sandbox, holding your father's hand, a numbness set in. The adrenaline faded, and in its place rushed a cold, quiet tsunami of everything. Your hand throbbed with a deep bone ache that was more than physical. It was a brand. A reminder that in this world, even a toddler's affection could be a weapon. Nina hadn't meant to be a villain. She was just a little girl who liked you too much and had a quirk she couldn't control. That was the most terrifying part. The danger wasn't some mustache-twirling evil. It was baked into everyday life, into playdates and sandcastles and unrequited crushes. It was random, senseless, and it had chosen you today. You thought of Kigo's empty eyes in the toy aisle. You'd given him plushies, but you couldn't give him a way out. You thought of Granny Ito's sticky sweet smile that hid 100 probing questions, another kind of threat lurking under the guise of community. You thought of your dad's scolding, the fear in his eyes when he couldn't find you, another weight on the scale of his endless worry, a worry you now understood vibrated on the same frequency as your own. And Tenko. The memory of his hurt, guilty face as you walked away was the sharpest cut of all. You'd wanted to give him a friend, and instead, you'd made him feel cornered and then abandoned him. You'd seen the villain in him for a second, and he'd seen the disappointment in you. The bridge you'd built felt charred and unstable. You looked to the side to see the same worried look your father had given you also apparent on his face. Does it hurt? He asked hesitantly, and you could tell he was anxious with the way he's been scratching the skin around his nails harshly. Ah, it seems you have forgotten about that habit of his temporarily. It stings a bit, but it's fine. You try to look cheery, except the look he throws back your way seems to have caught on to your act. You opened your mouth to say, I'm fine. Once again till he's convinced. But the lie stuck in your throat, a thick, painful lump. The words that came out instead were smaller, truer, and infinitely more fragile. Yeah, you weren't really fine. You were upset for multiple reasons. The day all came crashing down on you. That it stings, you whispered back, not just about your wrist. Your voice wavered. And I'm really sad. Admitting it made the dam break. Not into sobs, but into a quiet, profound exhaustion. You weren't a general or a therapist. You were a little girl whose best friend had a terrifying power, whose second friend could have broken her bones, and whose only safe place was the man whose own past was a locked box of shadows. The girl seemed so sweet you really wanted to be friends only for her to hurt you both physically and emotionally. You leaned your head against your dad's leg, too tired to even lift your arms for a hug. The world was too bright, too loud, too much. You had tried to reach out, to connect, to be normal. And the world had shown you, in the span of one afternoon, just how perilous every single connection could be. You were fine. You had to be. But for the first time, hiding in the shelter of your father's shadow, you let yourself admit that you were also, deeply and quietly, terrified. I'm sorry, Tenko quietly whispered. You were confused. Why are you apologizing to me? You didn't do anything wrong. To me at least, you internally finish your sentence. He doesn't seem convinced by your words, even more guilty than before. I didn't do anything when she hurt you. I should have done something but didn't and ran away. You frowned. The last thing you need to hear is him blaming himself. Don't say that. You did exactly what I asked of you at that time. And you stopped her from holding me back the second time. You did the right thing, like a hero. Your frown turns into a small grin and he holds his breath. Yeah, you kind of saved yourself by fixing the misunderstanding, but it still could have gone way worse had Tenko stayed by your side. Or even intervened in that situation. She could have easily hurt you both if that were to happen. But it should be fine to use this incident to your advantage and plant seeds of hope in the young villain, right? You want at least one thing to go right today. Maybe this is the chance to turn today's events to something meaningful. Tenko, you saw how bad Nina behaved earlier. Promise me you'll never hurt someone like that ever and will always try to protect the weak. Even if sometimes it means to run away and get help. You force your achy hand up and curl your pinky towards him. He looks up at you and your hand a few times. Then he interlocks your own pinky with his and nods, "Pinky promise." Your face lit up at the silliness. You lift up your thumb, guiding him to also lift his own before pressing it against each other. And now we seal it with a kiss. You chuckle and his cheeks were now dusted with light pink, lips curled upwards as you watched you laugh with your hands still together. He suddenly jumped forward, giving you a side hug and lightly whispers, "I'll be good, I'll share the sandbox. And the crayons. I'll share anything. But don't find a better Tenko, okay? Because I don't have another Aiko. You're my only Aiko-chan. Please don't make me share that." Tenko's words from your last meetup had left you shook. "I'll share anything. But you're my one thing, Aiko-chan." His words were laced with deep-seated terror of abandonment. It was very vulnerable, possessive yet heartbreaking. You didn't know how to react to those words back then and just laughed awkwardly till you had to part. It's given you a new vision on things. But just because you see something more clearly for how it is doesn't mean you'll automatically know what to do next. Tenko's voice was on a loop in my head. Not just the words, but the way he'd said them. The terrifying emotional clarity. Were all 3-year-olds secretly tiny, raw nerve endings, and I'd just forgotten? Or was Tenko different? Forged in a pressure cooker of neglect and expectation, was his emotional intelligence a survival trait, sharpened to a painful point? The doubts metastasized. Was any of this right? Befriending a future villain, was that compassion or catastrophic negligence? Was this even friendship, or was I just an emotional sinkhole for his trauma, a single-player therapy game I'd unconsciously signed up for? Were my smiles and pinky promises sincere, or were they just the calculated moves of a player who'd read the strategy guide? Be kind to the tragic villain child. It's what a good Ice Guy protagonist does. The answer, always, was a hollow echo. I don't know. But you'll still try. You're not fully knowledgeable about how friends interact yet from the lack of experience, but you think you're on the right track. For the future you uphold with your dad, you'll try to separate Tenko from Tamura and treat him with more sincerity than you already have. As you'd expect, the Nina shenanigans from last week had left your dad a little more overprotective than before. Like he's not already overprotective enough, no. It's been a week since he's let you play in the park, or out generally. He's taken you out for short trips a few times just because he thought it would be too unhealthy for you to stay inside 24. Fresh air is good for a child's development and health, the book said. Even then, he's always been holding you in his arms, barely letting you to the ground and walk. He seems afraid of even the smallest scratch hurting you. Or maybe that you'd run off to God knows where once again. You hope he doesn't resolve to getting a baby leash. That'd be the end of you. But he wasn't the only one shaken up from that incident. You were too, but not as much as he was, or so you believe. It only gave you fear of the unknown world you're still learning about and the various quirks there are to discover. Even a toddler was dangerous and it felt absurd. Tenko is literal evidence of this, but you still didn't register the danger until witnessing it firsthand and up close. You've been talking a lot with Tenko on the phone since you're unable to go play. You would snag Senshi's phone so much that he concluded to giving you access to the home landline wired phone instead. Now must have also gotten tired from Tenko's long-lasting phone calls, and that resulted in him also settling down on the fixed line. The only tether to the outside was the phone. Tenko's voice, small and staticky through the receiver, was a lifeline. "When are you coming back?" he'd ask every time, the hope in his voice a tiny, sharp needle of guilt. "Soon," you'd lie brightly. "Dad's just being a super worrywart." You could hear Kotaro in the background of your phone calls. With Tenko sometimes, the low, tense murmur of Kotaro Shimura's voice a reminder that your cage was at least padded with love. Tenko's had bars of a different kind. You hope your father's paranoia doesn't last long because it truly felt stuffy indoors. You also wanted to meet up with Tenko just as much as he was hoping to meet you. But your urgency was because of you knowing that your days together were numbered. Every minute of the day mattered. Meanwhile, Senshi was increasingly preoccupied. His side gig on the computer had morphed into long, intense sessions, his brow furrowed. His phone, once used for goofy selfies of us, now buzzed with encrypted-sounding alerts. Trying to sneak a peek was impossible. He had the situational awareness of a ninja. Your head would barely tilt towards the screen before his hand would casually slide the laptop shut, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "What's up, monkey?" "Bored." Bored was an understatement. You were marinating in a soup of anxiety, guilt, and stifling domesticity. You were restless with the need to unleash all of your unbounded energy. Your father wasn't cruel enough to let you stay indoors all day without any fun activities. In fact, the past week was the most entertained you've ever been. He hadn't become a jailer. That would have been simpler to rebel against. No, he'd become a master curator of indoor fun. The park wasn't forbidden. It was just perpetually outshone by the amazing, all-consuming attractions of home, the musical. Today's feature was an elaborate blanket fort that took up the entire living room, complete with security checkpoints, pillows, and ration packs, goldfish crackers. But Master Curator has long retired, going out of ideas to grab your attention with. You didn't know what else to do to make time pass by quicker. You needed a project, a purpose to keep you busy. So you turned to the bookshelves. There was a semi-large bookcase in the living room corner, and that corner became a part of your daily routine to check on. During Senshi's focused work hours or his lengthy shower, you'd become a tiny, methodical thief. Every day, you'd pick a random book, one that you can reach from the lower shelves, and discreetly try to read in your bedroom. You'd hustle it to your room and hide it under your mattress or the toy chest. Even at home, Senshi was always checking up on you a few times a day, just making sure you were doing okay. Whenever you took out the book to read, you'd always have an alibi ready, battlefield of dolls and blocks, and a brightly illustrated picture book open on my lap as a decoy, while the one you were actually reading was secretly pushed under the bed plushies. See? Just a kid, playing and looking at pretty pictures. Nothing to see here. You didn't want him to catch on to you being able to read, so you always surrounded yourself with toys and even a second emergency book for kids with pictures to switch with the one you were reading if he ever asked what you have been doing. Thank God you have experience being sneaky from your past life, so this operation was easy peasy. Just as long as he doesn't randomly look for the exact book you were reading. Something that caught you off guard was the books you picked out all seemed to be read. You don't usually see people fill up their bookshelves and actually read the books on there, but your dad seemed to be one of those people, an extremely intelligent man, you must say, from the choice of his books. Every book seemed to have a small crease on the corners of the pages, showing how he must have marked the books in his own way to where he left. That was a habit you had also formed, creasing the sides of the last page you were on as a bookmark. You tried not to crease the pages too much to avoid suspicion of reading them as well, but who would suspect a child as the culprit anyways? Even if he did suspect that, you can just say that you were playing around, right? That's an issue you'll think of a solution for later if it does actually happen. It was a problem for future Aiko. Present Aiko had reading to do. Back to the lines you go. They say the last thing you think about before drifting to sleep is what you will be dreaming of. Which kinda explains your dreams last night. It's been 2 days since you've last gone out with your dad. He's, as you thought, more strict with your movements than before. You tried to push down the bad thoughts that lingered in your head since that day, but they always resurfaced. Especially what Tenko had last said had stuck deep into your brain. His words were laced with fear of abandonment, jealousy, and possessiveness that gave you both the shivers and guilt. Were 3-year-olds this intelligent generally? It wasn't even about book smart, but how emotionally advanced Tenko seemed to you. He had explained his deep thoughts very clearly with his words, and that worried you. Were you doing the right thing? Befriending a villain? Was this truly friendship if he's only relying on you? Are you being sincere with your actions, or is it all calculated even if unconsciously? The answer always came to You've been repeating the questions in your head and doubting your every action of the past few months. Especially your encounter with Kigo. You felt really bad at getting involved and have tried convincing yourself more than once that you did the right thing, but your brainwashing wasn't completely successful. You feel too much pressure for a toddler, like the whole world's consequences are on your shoulder. And plainly speaking, they were, literally. You have a future villain in the palm of your hand and you were scared of worsening his personality in the future. What if he becomes more evil and hunts you down out of petty revenge, like when you stole a bite from his food? Who turned on the AC? Why is it so cold suddenly? Okay, but it's not far off from how unstable future Tenko was from the original. He had extremely anger issues and was very unpredictable, so it is a possibility of him to hunt you down for some petty stuff you did to him, even if playfully. Maybe it's time you treat the kid with more consideration of his future self in mind. The feather in your hand was warm. It was the red one Kigo gave you, and it glowed in the soft, dappled sunlight of the park. No, the field. Where were you? It didn't matter. It was pretty and safe, and you smiled at it. Aiko-chan. The voice was sweet, familiar. Tenko was there, holding a sand bucket. He smiled his shy smile, but his eyes looked tired. "Wanna play?" he asked, but his voice sounded far away, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "Okay," you said, but when you tried to walk toward him, your feet felt stuck. You looked down. The grass was gone. You were standing in the sandbox. The red feather in your hand crumbled, turning into dry, gray dust that slipped through your fingers. "You're my one thing," Tenko's voice said again, but it was wrong. It was higher, scratchier, like a broken record. He wasn't smiling anymore. He was just staring, and his hands started scratching at his neck until the skin looked raw. "So I'll keep you safe. On a shelf. Where no one else can play with you." A cold fear, sharp and sudden, prickled at your neck. You tried to step back, but a different hand shot out and grabbed your wrist. It was small but strong, impossibly strong. "Be my best friend," Nina chirped, her face suddenly inches from yours. Her eyes were wide and empty, like buttons. Her grip tightened. It didn't just squeeze, it crushed. A cold, metallic pressure ground into the bones of your wrist, a sickening crackle pop sound filling your ears. You woke with a gasp that issued all the air from the room, sitting bolt upright. The dark room swam. Your wrist, perfectly fine, throbbed with a phantom, bone-deep ache. The door flew open before your next ragged breath, framing your father's silhouette, backlit by the hall light. He looked more than worried. He looked appalled, as if the scream had been a physical breach of his security perimeter. "Aiko!" He was at your side in 2 steps, his hands hovering, his face pale. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" The panic in his voice pulled you the rest of the way out of the dream's glue. You swallowed, forcing your own voice to be small and steady. "Nothing, da." You managed, your voice a shaky traitor. You willed it to steady, to sound mature, dismissive. Tucking your trembling hands under the blanket. Just had a bad dream. That's all." He sat on the edge of the bed, his large hand coming to rest on your back, rubbing slow, warm circles. "Shoo, it's okay, monkey. It's over. Dreams can't hurt you. They're just silly stories your brain tells you when it's bored." His voice was a low, soothing rumble. Was it a monster? You shook your head, not trusting yourself to describe the decaying hands and the crushing grip. Just a scary feeling. He nodded, understanding. His eyes, full of concern, swept over you and then past you. They landed on your lap. You followed his gaze and your eyes went wide open. Your heart gave a hard, sickening thud. Echoes in the static. The thriller book you picked for today lay there, blatantly out of place against your all-might sheets. You'd fallen asleep reading it. His comforting hand stilled. The gentle rhythm broke. "Aiko," he said, and his voice changed. The sleepy softness was gone, replaced by a quiet, focused clarity. "What is this? Wrong book?" You blurted, the lie feeble even to your own ears. "Took the wrong one from the shelf. By accident." You offered a weak smile. He didn't buy it. Not for a millisecond. His gaze wasn't on the cover, it was on the dense block of text on the open page. Then he looked back at you, his head tilting slightly. Not with anger. With calculation. Then he asked the question that turned your blood to ice. Were you reading this book, Aiko? The world tilted. Why would he ask that? Who in their right mind sees a thriller novel in a toddler's bed and jumps to, she must be literate? Panic, cold and sharp, cut through the last of your drowsiness. You shook your head violently. No. Just pictures. The pictures looked scary. He didn't even acknowledge the denial. He just hummed, a low sound of dawning understanding. He muttered, almost to himself. That's why the books on the lower left shelf seemed out of order this week. I thought I was misremembering. Your jaw went slack. What? He noticed the order? The man could apparently perform a full inventory of the household library in his head while also folding laundry and devising new pancake shapes. The sheer, terrifying level of observation made a shiver skate down your spine despite the summer warmth. Before you could formulate a defense, a plea, anything, he reached over and plucked the book from your lap. He handled it with a strange reverence. He didn't yell. He didn't even frown. He just flipped it open to a random page near the middle, his finger tracing a line. Read this for me, monkey, he said, his voice still that unsettling, gentle calm. Your mind screamed. This was it. The reveal. The moment your carefully constructed facade of normal toddlerhood shattered. But under that piercing, expectant gaze, lying felt impossible. Your voice, small and thin, obeyed. The silence in the safe house, you read haltingly, the words foreign and heavy on your tongue, was not an absence of sound, but a presence. It was the sound of secrets settling, of histories burying themselves deep under the floorboards. You braced for it, the shock, the disbelief, the barrage of impossible questions. He simply nodded. I see, he said, as if you just confirmed the sky was blue. He closed the book with a soft thump. Then he bopped you gently on the head with its spine. "Owie," you squeaked, more from surprise than pain. "These are Daddy's boring books, monkey," he said, his voice warm and chiding again. "They're not for you. No more sneaking. If you want to read, you ask me, okay? We'll get you proper books with bigger letters and happier stories." He leaned in, his expression softening into pure, gentle concern. "No more thrillers before bed. That's what gave you the bad dream, see? Your clever little brain working too hard on a scary puzzle." He brushed your hair back and pressed a firm, lingering kiss to your forehead. It felt like a stamp, a seal of forgiveness. The dream is gone now. I kissed it away. All you'll dream about now is fluffy clouds and extra gummy bears, okay? The solid, sure weight of his love, so much stronger than the ghost ache in your wrist, pressed the last of the fear out of you. You managed a small, wobbly nod. Okay, Dada. Your surprise from earlier all gone, your mind mellow and tense shoulders relaxed. Good child. He stood, the thriller tucked under his arm like a captured spy. Sweet dreams, my smart, sneaky monkey. The door closed with a soft click, leaving you in the peaceful dark. You slowly slid back under the covers, the hypnotic feel of his head kiss still tingling on your skin. The world, which had felt so terrifying and bizarre just minutes ago, had somehow righted itself. Your secret was out, and instead of chaos, there was just and a new rule about library privileges. He kissed the scary dream away, you thought, the silliness of it finally dawning on you as drowsiness pulled heavily at your eyelids. What kind of magic is that? A tiny, sleepy smile touched your lips as you curled up. Gummy bear clouds. That sounded nice. Your last coherent thought was a fuzzy, amused grumble. Cheater. Using hypnotizing head kisses. And then you were asleep, the nightmare nothing but forgotten dust. So was the absurdity of the situation. What just happened? The next morning, immediately after you woke up with messy bed hair running in every direction, your mind reminded you of last night's episode. Did he just accept it? He caught his 3-year-old daughter reading a psychological thriller, confirmed her literacy with a pop quiz, and his response was a head bonk and a mild scolding about bedtime reading material? The expected earthquake of a revelation had been a barely felt tremor. The world hadn't shattered, it had just tilted on its axis, revealing a landscape where your secret wasn't the most shocking thing in the room. The sheer, dizzying normalcy of his reaction was more unnerving than any outburst could have been. Am I the weird one here? You thought, a hysterical laugh bubbling in your chest. What the actual flip? The confusion was a thick fog, but the adrenaline was gone, leaving behind a deep, hollow exhaustion. The phantom ache in your wrist was fading. Your father's bizarre, calm acceptance was a blanket heavier than any nightmare. You yawned, still feeling like sleeping more. You tried to stretch the sleepiness away from your muscles and got out of bed. Your first destination was clear, your father's room. It was 8 a.m. in the morning. You expected him to be asleep since he usually works himself late till night. But instead, he was in his armchair holding the book you were reading in his one hand. He was wearing glasses you've never seen before. They suited his face so much it was such a killer show. You approached him waddling while studying his face that seemed just as handsome as any other day. But these glasses added to his charm. Dad, you wear glasses? You ask with awe, forgetting why you even came here in the first place. He looked away from the book down to you and smiled gently before rubbing his eyes that looked strained. They're reading glasses. I usually don't use them, but this book really has small print. He replies, which is true. You've never seen him use them when on his computer or phone. But guess he didn't feel the need for them then. What are you thinking? You came here for another reason. Before you can say anything, your father yawns and takes off his glasses. What time is it, Aiko? It's 8:06 a.m. You look up at the clock in his room and read the time for him. He just smiles at you like he just figured another piece of information. I'm getting distracted again. You scratch your pink fluffy hair in annoyance as you try to refocus back to the main objective. But now that you're here, it's getting really awkward bringing up the topic first. You fidgeted with your thumbs as you think hard of what to say. Senshi's smiling face quickly darkens, and with full seriousness, he breaks the silence first. Aiko. You stand rigidly waiting for him to speak up first. Did you wet your bed from the nightmare yesterday? You're fidgeting around. He asks with a hardened expression. Your mouth is left open and your face turns a bright red from embarrassment. You throw small fists at his legs, and like a boiling kettle, you yell, I didn't wet the bed, stupid dad. He laughs as he fully accepts all your small blunts with faux pain. Okay. Sorry for assuming, Missy. He held his hands up in the air, showing defeat. You were still angry, your small hand curled into a tight fist, trembling with the itch to hit the pink-haired man one more time. Pow! The man doubled down to his feet, trembling in real pain this time. You had delivered a forceful kick to his shin with calculated precision, and that seemed to do the trick. You exhaled a sigh of joy at the man groaning with a pained expressions. Aiko, never kick daddy again. I might die if there's a next time. You rolled your eyes yet still smiled triumphantly, no shame in what you did. Wait, so you're telling me you were also able to read at the age of 3? From how much I remember, yeah. You look at him in shock and feel your head tilt to the side. From what he's told you so far, you both were extremely alike to a creepy level. Just as you had a hard time reading at the start, he did too. When you were 5 months old, you were able to read at the basics level, then further down the line you simply advanced from picking up on the more difficult words from TV, news channels, and commercials. Senshi said something similarly in his experience. It seems this runs in the family, he says, pointing a finger to his temple, although, you seem to be much smarter than I was at your age. Is it because your mental age is older? Surely you're only smart for a child, not a genius or something. You can even read time, what a smart cookie. He grins and ruffles your bed hair with adoration. He stops after a bit of playing around with your soft textured hair and went to bring a brush to tame the lion's mane. Dad, can you help pick out a book for me to read after breakfast? You ask, yawning into his lap as he brushes your hair. It was too cozy and the sun seeped in from outside through the window, giving you a warm hug. It was too comfortable not to sleep. With pleasure, my smart cookie. He smiles, seeing you snooze off against his chest. So far, nothing else was discussed with your father. He sees your hesitance to ask, to talk more about his childhood, yet he speaks none of it. You accepted the answers you got so far, and hoped he'll tell you the rest later in the future. Time will tell everything after all. For now, you're focused on sharing the big couch with your father and reading next to each other. Although it seems more like you reading and him napping instead. He's putting on a valiant effort, blinking slowly and jerking his head up every few minutes like a student fighting a lecture on a sunny afternoon. You keep staring at his sleepy figure, a smile tugging at your lips. That's what he gets for staying up late reading the thriller he stole from you. Reverse stole, technically. Confiscated. Finally, with a soft, surrendering sigh, he loses the battle. His head tilts back against the cushions, his breathing deepens, and he's out. You watch him for a moment, the lines of constant vigilance smoothed away in sleep, making him look younger. You decide, just this once, to be a good daughter. You shuffle off the couch and drag the small, knitted blanket from the armchair. With a great deal of clumsy effort, you manage to drape it haphazardly over his legs and one arm, leaving the other arm dangling. Good enough. Settling back into your spot, you pick up the book he'd chosen for you as a more appropriate alternative. He'd presented it with a flourish this morning. See? Big letters. And pictures. Happy. You look at the cover. It depicts two cartoon bunnies shaking hands in a sunny meadow. The title, in large, cheerful font, reads, "The Bunny Who Lost His Hop, a gentle story about perseverance and landmine awareness." You stare. You blink. You read it again. A slow, incredulous snort escapes you. Landmine awareness? For toddlers? You open it to a random page. One bunny, looking sad, points at a suspicious mound of dirt. The other bunny, wearing a tiny hard hat, holds up a sign that says, "Stop. Danger." You close the book gently and look at your peacefully sleeping father, the paragon of overprotection who thought echoes in the static was too scary. How profoundly child-appropriate, you mutter to the empty room, your voice dripping with dry amusement. Leave it to your dad to find the one children's book in existence that could give a kid nightmares about geopolitical warfare and explosive ordnance disposal. You could practically hear the public service announcement jingle. Shaking your head with a grin, you crack the book open again. You're about 3 pages in just as the hard hat bunny is beginning a very serious lecture on perimeter safety when a soft, sleep-slurred mumble comes from your side. "Scood book his poithth," your dad murmurs, not even opening his eyes. You look from the bunnies to his serene, trusting face, then back to the bunnies. The absolute, hilarious, loving absurdity of it all washes over you. "Yeah, Dada," you whisper back, your heart suddenly unbearably full. You lean your head against his blanket-covered shoulder, the ridiculous book open in your lap. "The most important stuff. Aiko, you must come to our house today, please ask your dad." Tenko pleaded with you on the phone and you can practically hear the boy jumping in the background. What could he possibly want to show you that he's insisting this badly? It was also your first time being invited to their house. Appreciate, Tenko's father Kotaro was out of the city for some business which must be the reason they're inviting you to their house. "Okay, I'm gonna go ask my dad, stay on hold." You left the wire phone hanging as you ran to your father's side. Tenko's enthusiasm must have rubbed off on you because you also started jumping in anticipation for your visit. Dad, Tenko invited me to go over and play, please let us hang out at their house please." You clutched his pants and gave him the best puppy eyes you could muster up to sway him. He smiles and reaches out his phone to show you messages from now that she's already sent before Tenko to invite you guys over. You look up at him waiting for his response, and he sighs at your expression before smiling back again and simply says, "Sure." Wait, did he seriously agree this easily? It's kinda weird after not allowing you to hang out with Tenko for so long. Maybe his paranoid episode is finally over. You squeal and run back to the hanging phone to give Tenko the best news ever. How long has it been since you met Tenko anyways? Even though you kept in contact every single day, it still wasn't the same as hanging out face to face. It's been like in forever since you've seen his face. Dad said sure. "I'm gonna come over to you guys?" "Yes." "Will Hannah be home too?" You asked impatiently while also shouting for your dad when you'll be going out so you can get ready. Sis finished primary school early today, she just has some homework to finish but she'll probably be done by the time you guys arrive." I have a big surprise to show you, he giggles, making you curious. What is it, what is it? You ask and he shakes his head, not giving away to the surprise. You'll have to come and see. You didn't stay long on the phone call with Tenko, you quickly said your goodbyes and see yous and rushed to get dressed. You put on the first thing you see in your closet and rush back out to the living room to find your father and nag him to get dressed as well. Come on. Don't be a slowpoke, Dad. Ding dong. Your father rings the bell for you, too high for you to reach, and you wait. I'll get it. Nah. I will. Hey. You hear noises behind the wall, stomping feet racing and getting closer to the front door. Someone stumbles and you hear a whine incoming as the door opens to reveal Hana with a big grin. Behind her stands Tenko, who turns out to be the one that fell face flat. Hi. Hana says cheerfully, followed by Tenko's big grin as he lifts his head up, still on the ground, to greet you. Hello. Me and Dad rushed to get here. Hope the macarons didn't become a mess. Your father hands the small bag to the little girl, and you look behind the two towards the fallen Tenko, who got up by now and stood behind his sister with a shy grin. Ojayama shimasu, your dad says aloud and now appears at the front door right after. You follow his words, I'll be bothering you, and hurry to take off your shoes to enter the house. Tenko goes to hold your hand and drag you inside, leaving the adults and Hana behind. He is watching you, giddy, unable to hide the grin on his face, one that seems more impatient to show you the surprise than you. What's the surprise? You study his expression, trying to figure out what it could possibly be, and he looks like a constipated puppy trying very hard not to tell you about it. Did you tell her already? Don't even think about it. You hear Hana's voice from behind call out, and soon after she appears in front of you too. Tenko shakes his head firmly. No. I didn't. He motions with his hands to zip his mouth, making you laugh. Are you guys gonna show me any time sooner or what? And before either of them utter another word, a loud woof interrupts. You all turn towards the direction of the sound, and then they turn back at you with a sheepish smile. The surprise is out. Hana rubs her neck. You gasp and hurry towards the closed door with Tenko holding your hand. Once the door opens, you see a fluffy dog pace in its place. Whoa! You beam, and the dog then jumps up on Tenko, tackling him to the floor. You forgot all about this dog. Its name was Mon. Tenko giggles at the small pet. You got a corgi? You lean down and watch the short dog attempt to lick at Tenko. He's a Welsh corgi to be exact. He adds, and you eye the dog with sparkly eyes. His fur looks so soft it's making your hands itchy. You can pet Mon, he's very friendly. Hana encourages. You hesitate and slowly extend your hand towards the puppy, letting him see your incoming hand to see if he'd allow you to touch him first. The corgi doesn't take a second before leaning onto you next, liking and tackling you onto the floor. Ha! He's so soft. You giggle and the corgi wags its small tail, enjoying the attention. Hana joins you on the floor with Tenko, and you all start laughing as the dog goes to tackle each one of you in a liking fit. Okay, I'm gonna need to wash my face now, I'm drenched in dog saliva. You exclaim, and everyone rushes to the bathroom with you. Me too, me too. Even Mon followed behind, but everyone turned around before he can enter the bathroom, yelling, not you. Everyone laughs. He looked at all of you surprised and just sat quietly in front of the door. Meanwhile, Senshi was rigid as he sat with Now in the living room. He didn't expect the surprise that the kids kept talking about to be a dog. Mrs. Shimura, I didn't know you had a dog? He asked casually, but it was more of a, you could have told me on the phone there was going to be a puppy kind of question. Thankfully, no one caught on to the panic that went through his eyes when the puppy made a loud bark. Everyone was focused, looking at where the sound came from to see the sheer panic on his face. Oh yes, we recently adopted him and the kids didn't want me to deliver the news till they showed Aiko themselves. Is it possible you find dog uncomfortable? Now asked apologetically, not meaning to keep him in the dark. Senshi waved his hands in denial, trying to say it's fine and that he doesn't hate dogs. Which is true, he doesn't hate them but generally tries to stay away from pets. And that's what he was fearing. Not the dog specifically, but the idea you might request a pet to keep after this visit. Kids do tend to get jealous of what other kids might have or possess, which is typically normal behavior for children around your age. So it wouldn't be surprising that you'd also want a dog after this visit ends. He absolutely couldn't care for a puppy, not even a fish, so he fears it would break your heart if he denied your request. After all, animals aren't for decoration. They deserve a loving home and caring environment. But his worries were thankfully cleared when you left the house calmly and only talked about your friend and the dog. And then, Mon climbed on top of Tenko completely only to sit on him. Can you believe it? He looked so funny. He listened quietly, noting how lucky he was to have as his child. Guess he avoided a calamity today. Excitement got the best of you. You didn't even think about how strange it was for your father to take you out of the house to hang out for once. Is it truly because his paranoia is gone? Does that mean it's been a few days since your visit to Tenko's house? Your father no longer denies your requests to go outside for simple fun. In fact, his monitoring seems to have gotten better. He looks a lot more relaxed than before. Strange. You cannot help think it has something to do with the more frequent side gigs he's doing late at night. All of which involve secretive messages written in a way hard even for you to decipher. You tried to not think much about it, but it didn't stop lingering in your brain that this was all part of a bigger picture you're still not seeing clearly. Today, you were walking through the longer route to get to the park with your dad him slightly behind as you skipped your way and savored the scenery. Not only was it him that suggested this route for you both to walk through, but he even seemed eager to convince you to walk through this way. You tried not to pry, but it was hard not be curious. You tried to subtly study his expression, watching where he was looking to gouge out any information. And you noticed he was staring at the toy store you last visited and accidentally met the winged hero. You gulped at his expression, reading it as him still angry at your disappearance that day. Aiko, Daddy's gonna go to the store for a bit and I need you to wait outside for me while I'm in there. Can you do that for me? You nod on reflex and wait outside for him to go, standing by the store's building like he instructed for you to stay. It was definitely strange that he didn't want you following him inside the store for whatever reason. And you were convinced to finding out that reason. You were about to peek inside to see what had him going in on his own, but something else caught your attention. On the other end of the store was a small child, crouching down and leaning against the wall. You didn't have to look twice to know who that figure was. Again, it was the pro hero Hawks. What are you doing here? You blurted out the question before you realized you were already standing by his side. The empty look in his eyes immediately filled with a spark once he registered your familiar voice in his ears. He looked up hesitantly, his mouth slightly open like he didn't believe you were right there, standing so close to him. He stared for a few extra seconds in silence, lips parting to say something but nothing coming out until, "I wanted to see you again," the boy innocently admits, his eyes searching through yours before pulling into a smile. You hesitate on what to reply to this pure interest of his. And you noted something else in his appearance. He was in a bad shape, looks like he sneaked out of home again after God knows what happened in his home. You had to force a smile on your face despite the sadness you feel when you look at his bruises. Was he this happy to receive a toy that he went out of the house despite knowing he'll face punishment for it? Just cause of this little act of kindness you showed him? The answer is yes. The boy didn't care what his father was going to do to him if he was found out. Again, he still wanted to come. And it's not the first time either. He didn't know where you lived, if you were from this neighborhood or even your full name. He only knew of the place you first met, and with a glimmer of hope, he came back to the store waiting to see you once more. You didn't fully understand what he hoped for, to run into you again by just waiting here? It was all a coincidence you came back to this store anyways, if your father hadn't insisted on going here. Pure coincidence all over again. Well, I'm here silly. You gonna keep staring at me or what? You hold out your hand for him to grab so you can help him stand up. He stares at it for a good few seconds, then looks up at you. He couldn't help but smile, matching the one you had on, as he finally took hold of your outstretched hand. "Hello, Aiko," he says in a whisper and his feathers flutter behind him. Your heart almost leaps out of your chest when he calls your name. How did he know? Hello, how do you know my name? Your surprise is written on your face. I heard your dad call your name. How do you know my name? You internally sigh in relief then stutter at the question, Did you say his name before? I have to go. It was really nice meeting you, Kigo. Yes, you did. I heard your mom call your name? Your voice pitched higher towards the end, not sure if his mom had even called his name or not. He nods in understanding and you sigh out loud this time. So I didn't introduce myself properly last time, but I'm Aiko Hino. You can still call me Aiko though. You look up at the taller blonde and he smiles, mouthing your name a few times. Aiko Hino. I'm Kigo Takami, but you can call me Kigo too. He looked to the side with a small blush looking embarrassed. Nice to meet you too, Aiko. He adds and you giggle at the awkwardness of the boy. You couldn't believe he was the same pro-hero that dominated the media with his sociability in the future. He watches you giggle with wide eyes, and once your laughing fit ends, you look at each other in silence. You awkwardly search through your brain to talk about something and then you catch a hint of the two dolls clutched in his hand. He had his wings wrapped around him so you didn't notice it till now, as they fluttered shyly. Oh, you still have the toys, I see. They look in great condition, way better than how they would have looked if they were still with me. The last part added in a whisper but he still catches it, and laughs while covering his mouth slightly. What's so funny? You ask incredulous, and he shakes his head saying nothing. Do you want to play heroes? He finally speaks up after the laughter ends. Sure. But I can't stray far from here, my dad told me to wait outside the store. You point to the front entrance, and he nods in understanding. We can play here? You point to the area in front of the store entrance directly, an open space that would allow for you to both play and your dad should be able to see you well enough. He nods again enthusiastically, and you take his hand to drag him there. Kigo stares at your hand with a blush that you do not notice. A blush that conveyed more than you would ever imagine. You're running around with two hero figures clutched in your hand and a baby bird chasing after you. Mwaha! You'll never save them. You muster up your best villain laugh as you dangle the two heroes like hostages. Kigo gasps, committed to the role a bit too seriously. Get back here, villain. I won't let you hurt them. He flutters his wings, giving him a slight push of air as he speeds up to catch up to you. Your eyes widen in shock as you give a comical jump of fright before looking forward again to run. Not long after, the boy appears in front of you like a wall, stopping you in your tracks. It was too late for you to hit your brakes and you clash into the kid toppling over him. Oomph! You hear from beneath you and look at the boy you accidentally tackled with worry. Whoops, sorry. Are you okay? You quickly get up and hold out your hand for him to take. He rubs his head a few times with a wincing look, making you feel guilty. Before his expression quickly turns smug, taking the two heroes from your hand. You slack your jaw at him. This little actor. Yeah, that's exactly what his future profession should be like. The kid was too good at acting. You huff before holding your hands up in defeat. You win today, hero. Then stick your tongue out childishly. He laughs and makes an appearance to arrest you, holding your wrists in front of you with pretend cuffs locked on. Heroes always win. He exclaims and holds up the two hostage dolls, freeing them safely. You couldn't help but laugh alongside him, truly having fun playing the childish game. He blurred the line between play and reality with his amazing acting skills, which really upped the game a notch. I'm so tired from running. Let's go sit there. You plop on the bench in front of the store entrance, forgetting all about investigating your father's suspicious activity. How old are you, Kigo? I'm 3 years old. You try to make idle chat with the boy as you ask him small trivia questions. I'm 4. He smiles and you nod, taking in the information quietly. Oh, you're older than me. Makes sense, you're a little bit taller. But just a little bit. You emphasize little and he laughs quietly. You then notice him staring off to the side like he had a question in mind he wasn't asking. The feather. You still have it, right? He finally asks and you brighten up at his question. I do. It's really pretty. I don't like taking it outside with me in fear I might lose it, so I keep it at home. You quickly explain and he feels his face warming at your indirect compliment. Pretty. You're pretty too, Aiko. He adds quietly but loud enough for you to catch. What? You think I'm pretty? You loudly repeat and he feels his face get red with embarrassment, like he said something that was only supposed to be in his head. Why yeah. He stutters and you look at him with a grin, genuinely happy to be complimented. You didn't think I was a boy at first? I'm usually mistaken for a boy, can you believe it? You ask with exaggerated exasperation and he shakes his head earnestly. No. You look too pretty to be a boy. He adds serious. You blink a few times at his comment and he finally seems to realize what he said and looks away blushing. Ah, you're too sweet. Don't be embarrassed, it's fine. You try to reassure the boy but he still avoids eye contact with you. By the way, I still have a few serious questions to ask you. You try to change the subject and he finally looks at you. Your wings, are they a part of your quirk? Can you fly? Do your feathers tickle? You ask and he looks at you surprised you're not teasing him for how his wings look, actually asking questions with interest instead. Yeah. I can't fly much. And for my feathers, sometimes, they don't tickle me though. He answers one by one. You eye his feathers curiously and he notices. Can I touch your wings? You ask and he blinks a few times before agreeing with a nod. You gently go to pat aside of his wings, they move a little, like they're listening to your hand. A few feathers twitch on their own, brushing against your wrist as if curious. They're really soft. Not like Welsh Corgi fur soft, but still soft in their own way. You laugh recalling the dog you met a while ago, then go back to stroking the boy's wings again, addicted to the texture. His wings aren't like pillows or stuffed toys. They're smooth and warm, the feathers sliding against your skin, hiding something strong beneath a quiet tension, like they might move at any second. It had you wondering how strong they can get to be used as weapons later on when he hones his abilities better. Your feathers are really silky. You comment, finally letting go of his wings. He nods and looks to the side bashfully, not used to such compliments made about his wings. What's your quirk, Aiko? He asks, eyeing you with the same curiosity you had earlier. I don't have one yet. I hope I have a flashy quirk like you, though. You add and he smiles at your words, feeling proud of his wings being called flashy. I'm sure you will. He adds and you nod smiling back at the kid. It's quiet once again, and you're rocking your feet back and forth from the bench, your attention shifting back to the inside of the store. You squint looking for your father in there but see nothing familiar. On your side, Kigo's curiosity was now directed towards your curly hair. You noticed when you glanced back at him but he was too lost in his own head to realize you looking at him. Do you want to touch my hair? You lean closer to him, your words cutting his attention back at your face. He looks embarrassed being caught red-handed staring at your hair, but nods anyways. Too curious to care about the temporary embarrassment. You lean your head downwards for him, and he hesitates before finally stretching one hand over to your hair. Soft, he mutters, lost in the feeling of playing with your hair. You giggle at the boy knowing exactly what expression he had on without even looking. Your hair looks like cotton candy, he adds, smiling as he tangles a finger around one of your short curls. Me and my father have the same hair color, except his is silky smooth while mine is very curly. You feel him run his fingers through your hair testing your statement before they tangle up and tug against your scalp. Ack. You let out a yelp and he quickly tries to retract his finger away but it's still tangled in your hair at this point, adding another choked yelp to come out of you. Sorry. He finally detangles himself from you with an apology, and you laugh through it not really offended. Told you it's curly, you add playfully and your hand goes up to smooth your hair but fail miserably without a mirror. He watched you struggle and extends his help, more careful this time, by smoothing your hair for you. Remember it's not real cotton candy, don't go biting it next time. You tease the boy and he blushes embarrassed. Then, he smiles to himself repeating the words, next time, in his head. Silence settles between you two again, much more peaceful this time. You both eye each other with smiles on your faces and say nothing, listening to the hushed noise of the leaves blowing nearby, reminding you of the approach of autumn. So, you want to play heroes again? You cut through the silence randomly. He nods, and you both rise from the bench, your energy easing back to its usual state. The back storage room of Tiny Heroes and Happy Bears Toy Emporium smelled like bubblegum and cardboard. Senshi slipped in through the employee entrance, finding himself between a pallet of plush bunnies and a wall of unassembled rocking horses. He gave one last look behind him to make sure his little monkey was still in place. Turning his head around, he quickly caught sight of curly pink hair peeking through the entrance door, trying very hard to be stable but still failing. He chuckles at the sight, knowing how curious his monkey was. She surely must be dying to know what he was doing right now and barely holding herself back from following him inside. He turned his head back to the shelves, his smile immediately wiped off his face and replaced with a hard and serious expression instead. A massive figure stood by a shelf of discounted fidget spinners. The man was built like a grizzly bear stuffed into a DLVY uniform 2 sizes too small. His arms were thick with old tattoos that peeked out from his cuffs, and a scar ran through one eyebrow. This was Tora, nicknamed Kitsune, for his cunning, definitely not his looks. Currently, he was also wearing a bright pink store apron with a cartoon teddy bear on the chest that read, "Hugs not drags." Tora's eyes lit up when he saw Senshi. He immediately snapped to attention, his heavy boots clicking together, and bowed so deeply his forehead nearly touched a box of squeaky rubber ducks. "Boss?" he boomed, his voice echoing in the storeroom. It was the same reverent shout he'd used a lifetime ago when Senshi was the young heir. He straightened up, his face split by a wide, gap-toothed grin. "It is an honor. You look tired, boss. Fatherhood suits you, but it steals your sleep." Senshi fought the urge to sigh. "Tora, keep your voice down. And the apron is a choice." Tora looked down at the cheerful bear on his chest as if noticing it for the first time. The store policy. Very strict. Would not wish to scare the small customers. He puffed out his chest, making the bear's face stretch. Senshi looked at him doubtfully, not sure how effectively the uniform is working. "I am delivering a very important shipment of educational wooden blocks. Very covert. I'm sure." Senshi leaned against a crate of talking alpaca dolls. "The situation." Right. Tora's expression shifted from jovial to serious, though the pink apron ruined the effect completely. First, an update on the hamster incident. The man you persuaded to leave the park last month? He has decided to take a long vacation in Okinawa. Very sudden. "A cousin won a trip," he says. "He will not be bothering any little girls at slides again." Tora nodded, clearly proud of this tidy resolution. Senshi gave a single, curt nod of approval. "Good. As for the main house," Tora continued, his voice dropping to a low rumble, "the chairman is gardening." Senshi raised an eyebrow. "Gardening?" "He has taken up bonsai. Very delicate work. Trimming small trees. Especially right now, he picked up a very delicate sapling and is currently nurturing." Senshi hums in deep thought, clicking the words together to make up for the bigger picture Tora is hinting at. This new sapling might just be a good distraction, for a while at least. He is focused on roots and patience. He is not looking out the window. The less disciplined members who were asking loud questions about you have been reassigned to the northern warehouses. Very boring. Very cold. Tora grinned. "The house is quiet, boss. No one is packing bags for a trip to your neighborhood. The books are balanced, the stories are straight. There is no wind, so no dust is stirring." Senshi absorbed this, feeling a coil of tension in his shoulders loosen slightly. It was the best news he could hope for. Not safety, but a ceasefire. A PRD of calm. "You're sure?" Tora placed a hand over the smiling teddy bear on his heart. "On my life, boss. The old man is pruning his little trees and drinking his tea. He misses you, but his pride is a bigger fence than any wall we could build. He will not chase. He is waiting for you to come back." Tora's face softened, a rare glimpse of genuine affection. He thinks it is a phase. A rebellious phase with a surprise granddaughter. Senshi let out a short, humorless breath. "A phase. If only. Keep watching the fences, Tora." "Always, boss." Tora bowed again, slightly less dramatically this time. "And the little boss?" "She is well." A ghost of a real smile touched Senshi's lips. "She is exhausting. And perfect." Tora's grin returned, full force. "Good. Strong roots make strong trees. Now, I must deliver these blocks. They will build the future." He gave a final sharp nod, then turned and lumbered toward the loading dock, a giant in a pink apron, off to deliver wooden cubes with the gravity of a state diplomat. Senshi watched him go, the surreal scene cementing in his mind. His protection detail was a reformed Yakuza enforcer in a teddy bear apron, his safety ensured by the fact that his adoptive father was currently obsessed with tiny trees. It was ridiculous. It was peaceful. He took a moment to straighten his own normal jacket, then walked back out into the blindingly cheerful store to find his daughter, the weight on his shoulders just a little lighter. He turned to see the familiar Pink in the distance, now sitting at a bench in front of the store. His smile widened and he shook his head in a sigh, before having to double-check back at the little girl. Just to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. They weren't. She was sitting next to Boy, a kid her age, and he had his hand in her hair looking like he was pulling at it from afar. Aiko! He stealthily exits the store, running to his daughter's side and the boy who dared pull at her hair with a frown. Sigh, she really knows how to get herself into funny situations.